Hiya, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
You want to go do a podcast?
Sure.
Jump in.
Friends, listen again to Binging Barbie. I'm your host, Jay, and with me I have a special guest co-host. I'm sorry about your weapons, Toa, but I must continue my journey. Toa Legend!
Hello.
Unfortunately, my regular co-host, John, is feeling a bit sick this week, but Toa has stepped up to finish out this Bionicle series. This is a podcast about toy media franchises, and we are wrapping up the original Bionicle quadrilogy. This is Bionicle, the Legend, Reborn. This is very separate from like the original three, but still within that same continuity.
Yeah, for sure. It's weird because like most people that have seen the Bionicle movies have only seen the first three.
Yeah.
And this last one is very different. And if you know the Bionicle story, there's parts of this that make a lot of sense. And then if you don't know the Bionicle story, those parts don't make any sense and are just like, why is this in the movie? So it's a fun time. Really accessible movie.
Yeah, it's an odd one. I'm excited to get into the discussion here. But yeah, this was released September 15, 2009. Weirdly, this is the same day as Barbie and the Three Musketeers came out. I have a theory on that. I think it's like, they must be looking at numbers when they're deciding these release dates, and like, this is the day, if we release it in this week, we will boost toy sales for the end of the year.
Yeah.
Because these have been coming out within like a week or two of the Barbie movies.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
It must have to do with the sales quarters and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And weirdly, this also has some of the same problems as Barbie and the Three Musketeers, which we will talk about a bit later. But this is directed by Mark Baldo, who was a director for Lego Atlantis and Hero Factory, but also a movie we've talked about on this podcast, Barbie: A Perfect Christmas.
Interesting.
Yeah. Not one of our favorites. I think it's last or second to last on both John and my list of Barbie movies. So, yeah.
Fair.
It is an odd one. But yeah, this was written by Sean Catherine Derrick, who's a TV writer who worked on The Smurfs, Batman the Animated Series, and the upcoming, which we're going to be talking about next week, Lego Hero Factory. And then we have art direction by Cristobal Aguirre and music by John DeAndrea, who is the composer for Baywatch.
Interesting. I didn't know
I think that's the movie. I didn't write down in my notes if it's the movie or the TV show.
Okay, fair.
I could see it going either way.
Yeah.
But yeah, plot summary. We already did a whole episode on like the summarizing from Web of Shadows to get here. So if you're curious about any of that stuff, go and listen to it. Toa was on that, and then also Sam, who was on the Web of Shadows episode, joined us to just dig deep into the Bionicle lore. That's like a huge chunk of the story there. But just for like a very brief summary, the Toa Nuva, along with Takanuva and a team of Matoran who turn into Toa, are able to bring Madanui back from the brink of death using an artifact known as the Mask of Life. And it turns out that Madanui isn't just the Great Spirit, but is actually the name of a giant robot on and in which the entire series has taken place. The island of Madanui being on the robot's face, and Metru Nui being inside the robot.
Funny enough, the island of Madanui is actually the only part of the series that does not take place within Matanui, but is named after Matanui.
Yeah.
Confusing.
Yeah, you can see how they're like building the canon as they go along with that. But yeah, the Toa and Batoran celebrate their victory in the Colosseum of Metru Nui, which has been restored, of course, located inside the head of this giant robot. And the robot rises out of the waters of this planet called Aqua Magna. Um, but something isn't right. The stars realign themselves in the sky and reveal the Mask of Shadows, which is Makuda's mask. And it turns out that Makuda has used the reboot process to take control of the robot, forcing Matanui's consciousness into the Mask of Life and sending it hurtling out into space.
Bum, bum, bum.
That's like the first scene of this movie, which is an
Yeah.
odd place to start, but that is kind of like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I forgot that that was actually part of the movie. And then I watched it and I was like, "Oh, okay. I remember a lot of these scenes. I thought they were part of just advertising material."
Which
Um,
they are.
yeah.
There's a separate like the which came out with like the Mystica and Fantoka, like the advertisement for that has this scene as well. Honestly, I think the advertisement is a little better animated, but we won't get into that right now.
Yeah, I think one thing that I noticed is they tried to stay consistent in this movie with all the characters having 3 fingers, aside from their thumb
Yeah.
on each hand. But I think in the actual like advertisement version, Matanui, the Great Spirit robot Matanui, has 4 fingers. So that's just kind of a fun little difference right there.
Yeah. It, you could do a compare like side by side of the two scenes because they are very similar,
Yeah,
but have very different like visual approaches, which is interesting.
yeah, for sure. It is like from like a nerd perspective. I forgot that it was animated, and I was like actually kind of happy to see like that part of it included.
Okay.
It's such like a big part of the Bionicle story. Like it's the thing that everything built towards.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see it fully animated. But in context of the actual story that's happening here, it doesn't particularly like. It's probably more confusing than anything, unless you know the past few years of the story.
Yeah. You could almost see a version of this which just and like begins with Madanui waking up after having crash landed. And having this like great weight upon him that you don't quite know why if you haven't been following the story up till now, but you understand that like, oh, he's got this like he's let somebody down. Um and then
Yeah,
eventually it turns out, oh, he let down, quote unquote let down.
yeah,
Well, we could get into that when we get into his character.
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, the start of this movie, we get the opening credits as the Mask of Life is flying through space, then crash lands on the desert planet of Bara Magna, and the Mask of Life actually manifests a body for Matanui, but this is a body the size of a Toa, so not giant robot size, but now,
That would have made a very interesting, different movie.
yeah. And yeah, he meets a Scarabax beetle named Click, who he's going to be the obligatory animal sidekick for the rest of the movie. And then also meets an Agori named Metis, I think is how you pronounce it.
Yeah,
And the Agori are like the Matoran of this planet. So they're the smaller ones, the general population here on Bara Magna. And Metis takes him to a nearby village of Volcanus,
I think
where two
Volcanus.
Glatorian are fighting in an arena. Um, and the Glatorian are like the Toa of this. They're a little bit bigger and they protect the Agori. They aren't all good.
Yeah, this is an interesting story. Actually, an interesting time for Bionicle sets in general because previous to this, either an entire set wave for the year or half the set wave uh, for each set wave was evil and half of it was good, or at least half of it was good and half the other half was like neutral in terms of like the Vaki could be argued either way. But this set release, we had the 6 Glatorian and 6 Agori, and then further down in the year, another 6 Glatorian. Um, it's not all cut and dry who is good and who isn't. It's kind of dependent on which character. you're looking at. The scroll, which were the black sets for the year, were all generally considered to be evil, and the Voroks were kind of, which were the brown sets of the early half of the year. They were not necessarily evil, but definitely not on good terms with our main characters.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
so
mean, they're all, so for context on Bara Magna, all conflicts between these different villages are settled in these gladiatorial fights. So you'll have characters who are, I mean, they're gladiators essentially. They're fighting for their villages, and so depending on what the conflict is about, there could be a different side you're rooting for. But this particular fight, we have Akar, who is the fire one, and he bests his opponent Strack, who is the ice one. But Strack is not a good sportsman, and while Akar's back is turned, Strack attacks him. And horrified by this unfairness, Madanui jumps in and saves Akar and befriends him. And after the fight, they decide to team up with Kina, who is the water one, and they go to Tejun village, the water village. But on arrival, they discover that the village is in ruins after having been attacked by the army of Skrull. That's with an A, not a U. This isn't Marvel. Um, but they are they do serve a similar purpose. They aren't shape shifting here, but they're kind of the
yeah,
hordes
again,
of.
very different, very interesting movie if they could though.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that would be too much though.
Yeah, I think
Although,
so too.
isn't there like the species that they're fighting that can shapeshift in like the books?
There's a lot of different weird species on Bara Magna. Bara Magna has like, similar to the regular Bionicle universe, Bara Magna has a lot of depth to it. There's like a lot of weird different creatures on it, including creatures that like literally murder anything that holds a weapon, or you've got the element lords. You got a lot of weird stuff, but it's not quite as fleshed out. It's
Yeah,
more, it kind of feels like an Indiana Jones style temple in a way, where it's like mystic, and like there's some cool elements to it, but it's not really fleshed out. Like if you gave me a floor map of Bara Magna in this case, you'd be like, "Oh, what is this empty area over here? Why is this just sand?" Like,
yeah.
it's weird.
Well, yeah. Anyway, the Skrull, who are just hordes of enemies here, and then also the Bone Hunters, who don't really factor into this much.
So the Bone Hunters, this is a frustration, at least on my part. The Bone Hunters and the Skrull both wear black armor and both have the same helmets. So it's really hard to tell them apart. They got like, in this movie, they're like all surprised, oh, the Bone Hunters and the Skrull are working together. But I remember looking at it as a kid and being like, that guy looks like a Skrull. He's just riding a cool dinosaur horse thing.
Yeah, I must have missed that completely. It's like the five armies in the Hobbit Battle of Five Armies, where you're trying to
Yeah.
figure out which army is which, and
Yeah.
depending on how you count it, there are either two or like 15 armies.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, they
Uh,
also meet Gresh, who is the air one, and Barracks, who is an Agori who Kina suspects of being a traitor. He's like a shifty, likes to grab things when people aren't looking.
yeah. A bit of a kleptomaniac.
Yeah, obvious red herring here. Of quite a few red herrings in this movie. But yeah, the group then head out to the village of Tessara, which I was reading up on this. Apparently, it's like twin villages, like two villages that are very near each other. Um,
Yeah.
they have these like cool tree looking structures.
Yeah.
Um,
It's the plant villages.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that night, Kina and Barracks are walking around and are taken by the Skrull. So Madanui goes after them to the Skrull village and fights their leader Tuma. Um, he doesn't really factor in much because Matanui pretty easily beats him. But then Metis steps out from the shadow and reveals that he is the one behind this whole alliance between the Skrull and the Bone Hunters, and he's been pulling the strings all along.
Bum, bum,
Um,
bum.
yeah, they treat it like a big reveal. I don't know. I figured it out pretty early.
I think, yeah, to me, I remember watching this and being like, oh, okay. Like it's I guess if you're not expecting it, it is kind of a big reveal, but it's not like we've trusted Metis at all
Yeah,
this whole time.
yeah. It's like, oh, the kind of odd, shifty character who was in the background for a lot of this movie turns out to be the real big bad guy. You're like, okay, I guess so. Why not?
Yeah.
He commands the armies to attack Madanui, but Click, the little Scarabax beetle, gets a bunch of them to join together and form this giant Scarabax creature to wipe away both of the armies. And Matanui transforms Metis into a snake, which would have been a really helpful power for him to be using throughout this movie. Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, back in Tisara, the Agori have started to unify these twin villages, and it turns out when they put them together, they form parts of this giant robot. And there's a map leading into the desert, this like maze-like structure that Matanui is going to try and figure out, try and get this robot put back together and save the people of the Matoran universe. And that is how this ends.
Yeah. It sets it up really well for it makes me really excited for the sequel.
Yeah.
Which is definitely coming and not uh forever canceled and you know,
Any
maybe
day
next
now.
year. Yeah.
It's the winds of winter. It'll show
Yeah.
up one day.
Yeah,
They'll
exactly.
finish making it. Just gotta write another spin-off.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is an interesting direction to take things in, just as like we've talked about this a bit on the last episode when we just deep dived into lore, but for a general overview, this is a bit of like a soft reboot where Lego was realizing that the story was getting very unwieldy for the original Bionicle run, but people were such big fans of the story that rather than just stopping and starting a new continuity, they decided to try and continue on, but with a new setting, new characters, so that hopefully people could jump on board. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting way to take things, to be like, okay, here's this new planet, and like it has a very different feel to it.
Yeah. I th- I think in general they really tried to soft reboot Bionicle, but the downside was they kind of took everything that made Bionicle and didn't use it in the soft reboot.
Yeah,
Initially because it's, you know, largely based off of the Maori culture and like different islanders culture. It was set on a water planet with islands, and that was kind of the home turf. And now we're on the complete opposite, being on a desert planet. On the same front, some of the identity in Bionicle they stripped away, being that in Bionicle it was the masks that were always super important, and each of them had their powers, and e- e- each of the Toa had elemental powers. And in this movie, there's one mask, the mask of life, and everything else is technically classified as a helmet.
yeah.
Um,
Because this is when they had the new set design where instead of having the face that then has the little connector that you put the mask on, it's now like a head that you put the helmet on top of.
yeah, exactly. So mask powers are gone. That's not the first time we've seen no mask powers. Obviously, the Hordika sets
Yeah,
didn't have mask powers, but then they didn't really have elemental powers aside from in this movie where Matanui gives them cool weapons.
yeah,
Um, so it was just like a pretty big deviation. And then on top of that, like we didn't have the good versus evil narrative that we always
yeah,
had. It's kind of like a everybody's fending for themselves, and Matanui is trying to unite everybody, which is it's a cool narrative, but it does kind of like it's a little bit boring if you're a kid, I
Yeah,
think.
it's harder to play
Yeah.
because yeah, you have these gladiatorial fights, but the people fighting in those fights might not actually be opposed to each other. It's just, oh, they happen to be, this is the conflict. They must fight each other for this set piece, but then they can go back to being friends or rivals or
Yeah.
whatever. But then you also have like the Skrull who are off to the side and they're evil, but like in a very off to the side way.
Yeah. It's
Like they're more creatures than beings with a lot of autonomy.
yeah, both the Skrull and the Vorox are a
Yeah.
lot like that. Where the Vorox are kind of like more animal in nature, the Skrull are almost more hive mind like in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, feels like. So it's very weird. They did, talking just briefly on like the actual sets of this year. The sets didn't change all too much from previous sets as far as like pieces. We did get a few new pieces this year. In fact, the coloration and the piece design for this year were actually really solid.
Yeah.
Um, they did want to add play features back because in the original set releases, the game was you had one character, the other person had another, and whoever knocked off the other person's mask first won. This time, they decided, okay, we're going to go with this gladiator style combat thing, and we're going to put these little dials on the back of each of the characters, and each time that you hit um, your opponent with the Thornax blaster, which is the little like pinch to shoot spiky ball thing, um, you knock them down however many points. And there were rules about how far you could move your character in between turns and things like that. But I don't think very many people ever played with, like, I never played with them like that.
Yeah.
I got a lot of the sets for this year, and I don't think I ever even tried. I might have like tried to set it up a little bit and then be like, these rules are too complicated. I want to just hit the other person with the sword. So I
Yeah, I
don't know.
have vague memories of trying to do it with my sister, and I don't think we
Hmm.
ever got very far before we are just
Yeah,
like, okay, this is
yeah. In general, like the blaster that they had this year was really good. Like it was very simple. Total of what is that? 5 pieces.
yeah.
Easy to produce. Actually, 4 of the pieces are just duplicates of each other. You have the two on either side, and then the 2 pins, and it just attaches to any hand. And then the projectile is the Thornax spiky thing. But you can, as John would want me to mention, use a Zamor sphere. Or was that Sam that was saying? I think it was Sam that was saying
Yeah.
you can use a Zamor sphere there. In fact, Hero Factory does that a few times. Um, so really good blaster, really good weapons, really good part design, but the story is just a little bit lackluster this year. Um,
Yeah. It's it's interesting. I don't mind the story as much overall, but yeah, there's a lack of drive to it.
yeah,
There isn't as clear of a goal. Um which obviously in the next sort of arc they were planning on doing this like, oh, they have to go to the center of this maze and find what's in the center, which that to me is a little bit better and you could have built that out a bit more. I kind of wish that had been the arc for this one rather than
yeah,
just let's go on a weird little adventure and visit these various little villages, but not all of the villages.
correct,
But
yeah,
also it's like I, I don't know that there's a weirdness in how, because yeah, in the right the Bionicle up until now, the Matoran universe, we've had the clear 6 elements and the side elements which don't factor much into the main plot. But you have those elements and they have their like little area and they have their characters.
mhm,
Here it's a little bit more spread out and a little bit more nebulous, and yeah, it's missing a bit of that like structure that Bionicle had up until this point. But also, I mean, if they're going to do a soft reboot, I do respect them being like, hey, let's just go in a completely different direction, try something new, see if it works. It didn't work for them, but
Right.
um,
Yeah, this also came at a weird time in Lego too, where they
yeah,
were there's a clear like clearly a lot of employees had put a lot of work into the Bionicle and it showed and it had some really good sales, but it was starting to kind of phase out in sales in general. It's an awkward situation because all of the like, the third graders that they were marketing to with the first wave of Bionicle, those third graders are adults now. They're going to
yeah,
college. They're at that point 19 or 20. So they're not going to be into Bionicle. And the new generation, they don't really want them to have to sit through 10 years of lore or, three really good podcasts to understand all of it. Um, and so like they tried the soft reboot and it still got sales, but the reality was the culture of Lego is starting to shift as well towards trying to have, rather than a bunch of different, very unique and well designed pieces, trying to have pieces that you could use for almost any situation. Um, which there's advantages and disadvantages to that,
yeah,
and Hero Factory played with that a lot more. But in this set release, it was like this was their kind of, unfortunately, their last hurrah, and they didn't know it yet.
yeah,
So this movie came out, and it it did well enough. I remember being excited for it, um, but unfortunately, that it came at a weird time where Lego was pulling the plug. And I will say this much: I respect what they did in this movie because you can tell they learned from some of their past mistakes. Because this movie is a pretty solid setup movie for Bara Magna.
yeah,
It's You're not just jumping into season 3 of a show without knowing what's going on. This is Bara Magna. It's a desert planet. We meet the main characters. We see the conflicts. Um, and for that, you know what? I think they do a pretty good job. But again, they're missing a lot of those bionicle components that I was sad to see go.
yeah. It makes me curious what if they had continued beyond this movie, specifically in the movie side, what the next little bit would have looked like. How far they would have expanded it and how much they could have made Bara Magna a deeper and more interesting location.
Yeah.
Um, it reminds me of a lot of those, like, especially, I mean, even today, but especially like 5, 10 years ago, when you had a whole bunch of movies coming out that were like, oh, we're going to make this into a franchise. Here's the first movie, but
Hmm.
this is going to be a whole franchise. And so you had like the Assassin's Creed movie or the Tom Cruise Mummy, or I just recently watched After Earth with Will Smith
Mm,
and M. Night Shyamalan directing. That was supposed to be like a huge multimedia franchise. And then the movie didn't perform very well. So they're like, oh, guess we're just throwing all of that out the window and pretending none of that ever happened.
yeah. Yeah. It's hard. It's
Yeah.
very hard.
Yeah. And
Uh,
especially when you have the toy line tied to it,
hmm.
that it's like both things have to be performing well. And the movies are almost superfluous. They are advertisements for the toys.
Sure.
But then, the story is what people are actually invested in. That's what people want to see come to a satisfying conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah. To get back to this movie specifically, I think it has I've identified, I think, 5 fatal flaws that
Okay.
I think if they had fixed any 2 of them, this would be an okay movie.
Sure.
They had fixed more than two of them, it would have been a pretty good movie. But the first one here, we'll get to them as we go through the categories. The first one here, though, is the writing. And I don't know. I feel bad because they maybe didn't have enough time or they're trying to do a whole bunch of different things. But the dialogue and the exposition, the banter, none of it works.
Yeah. It's interesting because as I was listening to it, mind you, I haven't watched this movie in years now.
Yeah, yeah.
It might be a full decade since I've seen this movie. Um, and since then, I've consumed a decent amount of Bionicle media, just going back and rereading and rewatching and all that. And the funny thing to me is, I'm noticing just how much influence the main writer for Greg Farshtey, or the main writer for Bionicle, named Greg Farshtey, has over this movie. Because in
Yeah.
previous movies, he wasn't the lead writer for them. In this one, he has a lot of influence, and I think it's especially visible in the dialogue. I love Farshtey's storytelling. He does a really good job, especially with the Ignition arc. Um, there are people that disagree with me on that. A lot of people don't like that he made Makuta into an organization rather than just one dude, and I respect that. But I like most of his decisions, but his dialogue can be a little clunky.
Yeah.
And when you're listening to like the audiobooks that he recorded, or the you're just reading through his books, they all read very similar to this, where it's like a little clunky. It's kind of lovable in a lot of ways, but you can tell that he has a very specific delivery for how he wants something to be said, and if it's said anywhere else, it just sounds really weird and off.
Okay. Yeah, that answers a different one of my five major flaws that we'll talk about down the but yeah, and I mean, you do have to consider that like Greg Farshtey was writing a whole lot of stuff over
Yeah.
these 10 years of Bionicle, just like constantly turning out new books. And when you're writing at that pace, there's going to be a little bit of quality that takes a hit. So the fact that he's able to craft this like big epic story with a lot of interesting characters and stuff going on and big cinematic moments, like that's really cool. But yeah, it makes sense to me that that dialogue is not quite a strong suit. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that like the last three movies had spectacular dialogue, but this was just so full of like cliche phrases, and the banter just never worked. And yeah, it was very lacking to me.
Yeah. There was definitely it was funny because watching through this, a lot of the things that they said, I was like, I realized partway through I'm mouthing half the things that they're saying as they're saying them. And I don't know if that's because like when this came out, my brain was just at the right moment to where, okay, I watched this a few times. I watched the behind the scenes. I ingrained that into my brain. Or if it's just like the things that they're saying are just really cliche and easy to like predict. I think it's a decent mixture of both.
Yeah, there's a lot of just like stock movie phrases in there. Um,
Yeah.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but you recognize them immediately as like, oh, I have heard this in every single action kids cartoon that has ever come out.
Yeah. There were some phrases too that they just kept on using in the advertisements. Like the phrase gutsiest move I've ever seen just rings in my brain whenever I hear it. Uh,
Yeah, it's it's unfortunate, and I do
yeah.
wonder if there is again. You have this isn't written by Greg Farshtey, but he gets a story by credit. And I was watching some of the behind the scenes, and he was very involved in this. And then Sean Catherine Derrick is the one who actually is credited as the writer. But yeah, I wonder if they just didn't have enough time to go back and like polish things up on a second or third draft,
Yeah.
and so you
That's
end up with some
entirely possible.
yeah. And another thing to me, so obviously all of these movies are meant to sell toys. This one to me, I could feel them selling me the toys in a way that I
Yeah.
didn't to the others. Specifically when, oh no, there's a creature in our way. It happens to be the set you can buy at stores right now. And they have
Yep.
this whole action scene of like, here's all of the things this set can do.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, they do. I mean, like from a like advertising perspective, they do a really good job of putting in a lot of the sets for this year,
Yeah.
in ways that are like mostly natural, I guess. Um, I will say though, as a kid, this movie made me not want to buy Tuma. I felt like Tuma was just a pushover. Like all the other characters, I was like, oh, this is cool. This person does that. It was like, oh yeah, Tuma is kind of a pushover. Strack is a jerk. Malum's not even really in this movie.
No, which he has some weird stuff in the lore, if I'm
He
remembering
does.
correctly, which makes sense as to why he isn't in here. I'm a little surprised that he isn't just because everything else is in here.
Yeah.
All of the
It,
vehicles, all of the different allegory figures.
yeah. It is interesting. Like I will say I like that they left some of them out because I think they were trying to expand towards them. So
Yeah.
Malum is a character that ends up running the Vorogs, which are like the scorpion-tailed ones. He kind of becomes their like tribe leader. Then you have like characters like Gelu, who's one of the ice ones, who's off doing other things. Um, and I think they were trying to expand towards that. A lot of the like books uh, come from like Gelu's perspective, and he's a cool character. Um, and then the little Agori. Uh, there's the green one becomes very pivotal for Matanui navigating that maze. So I think that's kind of the direction that they're going to be going for the next movie. But they did try and at least get most of the characters at least visible on
Yeah.
screen. Even the giant monster that's created by the Scareback's beetles at the end is in the shape of Malum. So at least if you're
Okay.
like, oh, I bought the red one, why isn't he here? You can be like, oh, he is, but as just a shadow figure. Okay.
Yeah. It's odd that we've been doing this podcast, John and I, for a few years at this point. I think this is honestly looking back at all of the toy movies we've covered, the 44 Barbie movies, the 17 Monster High movies. I think this is the first time where I felt them selling me the toys
Yeah.
in this way.
Yeah,
Which,
that's fair.
yeah, and I mean, looking back, I can be like, okay, yeah, Monster High, Scare a City of Frights. They have the scene where Gulia gets her new car, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, obviously that's the set, and you can buy the set and have the Gulia's car and drive it around with your dolls inside. But this one just, I could feel the like almost subliminal messaging of like, buy this giant set with the legs, and buy the vehicles and the characters and everything. I don't know what it is. It's just kind of fascinating that in the years of doing this, this is the most that I've felt that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard to like really put my finger on like exactly why too, because like at the end of the day, the past few Bionicle movies, like even just the last one that we watched, it has all the Titan sets in it. It has Kitangu, it has Sidorak, it has all of the character sets, it has the Rahaga, it has every set from that year aside from maybe a few of the Dark Hunter sets that were a little bit more niche. Um, but in the last movie, I didn't feel like they were necessarily being sold to me. It was just, oh, they're natural parts of this story. It makes
Yeah.
sense that they're there.
I wonder if it's because they're characters in that
Mm,
rather than just we're featuring this set, this scene as like, here's the, again, the giant spider thingy. just like shows up out of
Yeah,
nowhere, and then you have the big action scene with it, and then never factors into anything after that.
that's fair. Actually, it's so funny because like that in the actual story of Bionicle, that it's a Scopio. Um, it like there are natural Scopios. That one that we saw and the one that's a release set is actually a mechanical creation of this essentially like crazy person
Oh,
who he's like he's part of this really like niche iron tribe who gets all of like one day they all start losing their dreams at night, and then that slowly drives all of them insane except for like two of them, and he's one of the two, and so he builds this giant uh scorpion creature to like out of like revenge because now everybody feels like it's like some sort of disease, and so nobody's interacting with the iron tribe, and so he builds this giant thing as kind of like a revenge but also a way to survive the desert alone, and he's a cool character, but in this movie he's just pew.
yeah,
It's like, okay, I get it. Don't get me wrong. His whole backstory is like 100,000 years long or whatever. But
yeah, yeah. You think of how, like, even though we didn't get all of Rudaka or Sidorak's backstories in Web of Shadows, we still understood who those characters were in that movie.
yeah,
Even like, I guess you have like the Visorak, the giant Visorak spider. That's probably a little bit closer to this. But even then, it's like, oh, we understand what the Visorak are. This is just a bigger version of that. Um,
yeah. With Scopio, it's like they were already on the run from bone hunters at that point, and at that
yeah,
point we know okay the Skrull and the bone hunters, although kind of hard to tell the difference, but
yeah,
they're
yeah.
the bad guys. And then at this point, it's like, well, but why is there just a random other thing here now? Is he with them? Is he against them? Is he just a big bad? Is
Is he
this
available in stores now?
yeah. I'm surprised they
Yeah.
didn't show his like transformation
Oh,
abilities of being able to turn into like a roaming tank thing instead of
oh,
a
that
walking
makes sense
creature.
with like, yeah, the treads
Yeah,
on
the
his arms.
treads.
Yeah,
Yeah. Really cool set. I ended up picking him
yeah.
up as one of the last Bionicle sets I got. He was on sale and I was like, "Oh."
Oh,
So I got him.
yeah.
And a really cool set. Lots of I think it's the largest set in Bionicle as far as
Oh,
pieces. It's either that
that's
or the
cool.
Exalera.
Yeah.
Um,
I remember the Lego magazine
mhm.
advertisement for it.
Yeah, I actually for those watching and have access to YouTube, I actually when I built him, I was really obsessed with the idea of building him in stop motion, and so I made a little stop
Oh.
motion video that is currently on my YouTube. However, looking back on it, I filmed the stop motion with my Nintendo DSi, so it's not the best.
I remember doing that. Those were the good old days.
Yeah. Took me like 3 days to build it though because I kind of in some ways kind of regret it, but it's fine. I can take it apart and build it whatever I want.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it looks so cool just looking at the images here.
No, their advertising is working. Gosh darn it.
Well, I can't buy it, so I guess I
That's true.
could, but
Not
I
from
don't have
them.
that kind of money.
Uh
Yeah,
yeah.
the story, I mean, it's also just awkward because it cuts off and then just never gets a continuation.
Yeah.
And it cuts off at like, okay, with hindsight, it would have been nice if the last Bionicle movie had been the giant robots fighting each other.
Yeah.
Because that's where this is obviously headed. We have the giant
Mhm.
robot in the desert that Madanui is going to eventually take control of, and we have Makuta in Madanui's old body who's going to show up, and they're going to
Mhm.
fight, and it's going to be big and cool. And I don't know. I was reading. I've been reading Clive Barker's Books of Blood, and there's a story in the hills, the cities, which has two giant figures fighting. Although
Mm.
that one ends very differently than Bionicle because this is a horror story versus Bionicle, which is more kid friendly than
Yeah, I
Clive
can imagine
Barker.
those being a little different.
Less death and dismemberment in Bionicle. Though, I mean, there is some death and dismemberment in Bionicle. I was researching like the story beyond this because it does continue a little bit after the natural end point, and like the stuff in the Red Star, I was like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah. It
I,
gets interesting, but they
yeah.
don't get to those parts. So sad.
But yeah, I mean, even still, like the giant robot fight, they don't get to in the movies. It's just you have to, yeah. If they had just known, okay, this is the last Bionicle movie we will ever make.
Yeah.
Let's just go all out, giant robot fight. That would have
Yeah,
been fun.
that is the huge downside. It feels like the Lego, like the people working at Bionicle were kind of, they got the rug swept out from under them in a way,
Yeah,
where it's like, okay, we have, from what I understood, they were planning on making this at least a 2-picture deal, if not a 3-picture. But with Bionicle sales on the decline and them wanting to change things up, they kind of were just like, okay, we're just gonna drop it here. I think the storytellers were kind of like, oh, well, if you'd told us that, we would have made a really cool send off movie. But
yeah,
now we got this one and it kind of goes nowhere. Uh,
yeah. I want to bring in John's letterboxed review, which he put up. This was back in March 22 of 2022, so I don't know how his thoughts have changed since then, but his review is that this is a good opening of a trilogy that sadly never came to be.
mm,
Now, I would maybe disagree on the good part, but this is very much like, yeah, there's, you feel the potential.
yeah. Yeah. It's it's there. And like the reality is, I'm critiquing it as
Yeah,
an adult well into my 20s looking back on a children's film. I remember when I watched this as a kid, I loved this movie. And admittedly, I liked the other ones a little bit more, I think. But this was the new one. This was the
yeah,
fresh
yeah,
one. So I was like, yeah, I love this movie. Um and so like I think kids at the time probably didn't experience like as much of a disappointment in the story. It was good guys go fight bad guys.
yeah.
Tale as old as time. But I think they definitely lost any of their older fan base with this movie, which is the hard
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, that's a difficult balance to strike, and maybe sort of the fatal flaw of this later Bionicle is having to serve these different audiences.
Yeah.
You have the people who have now grown up a little bit and are looking for something a little bit heavier and more substantial, and then you have the new fans who are coming in and don't necessarily want to have to wade through all of the lore to understand everything. So you have that clash there that
Yeah.
just leads to something that is trying to serve both of those audiences and doesn't quite hit right for.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of, when Star Wars was first releasing sequels.
Yeah,
Um that was a tough point for them as well because they wanted to bring in new fans but also appeal to the old fans. And unfortunately, I not to get into a Star Wars podcast, but I feel like they ended up kind of going a little bit too middle of the road at times. Um, and then we got, Rise of Skywalker, but
yeah,
it happens. It's a hard balance to figure out how to appeal to both new and old fans with such big franchises.
and it's something that Lego has continued to struggle with. Like now, I love all of the like Lego ideas sets, but there
Mhm.
is something of like, oh, these are sets that are designed for me as an adult,
Yeah,
that my cousin who is, well, now he's like 13, so he can put them together, but 5 years ago he couldn't.
sure,
They would
yeah,
have just been too frustrating for him, and they're like meant to look good, not to be playable.
hmm
And yeah, there's something missing there. I buy a bit of Lego just as like I enjoy having something to build.
Sure.
Um, and it's very stark the difference between like when I buy one of the new Lego Animal Crossing sets. It's all like, oh, this is the customization versus when I get like a Lego Ideas plant set. It's
Sure.
just like,
Yeah.
oh, you build the plant, you set it down somewhere, you forget about it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe dust it off at some point, but that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true. They're definitely Lego has realized that their audience is um a, a lot of their audience is adults as well as
Yeah.
children. So they've definitely been marketing for both. Um, but this was definitely like when this movie came out, they that was not even a concept in their mind. It
Yeah. Yeah.
was all of our products are geared for essentially between 7 and like maybe 12-year olds. And if others enjoy it, awesome. But we're going to keep marketing for this specific age group.
Yeah. And I do wonder, not to get too far into the what happens with Bionicle
Hmm.
now beyond this point, but I do wonder if they're ever going to bring it back as like a more adult focused line.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I know that they keep they know that there's a lot of fans that still like Bionicle, and it
Yeah.
still has that name recognition for a lot of kids that had any of the sets. Um, to the point where like Lego has a few pieces that have Bionicle Easter eggs on them, essentially.
Yeah.
Or in recent there was a recent like poll that they put out for, or I guess it was more of a survey for upcoming Lego merchandise, and one of the questions was, would you like to see some like legacy um, sets as merchandise, like pictures of Tahu on a shirt? Would you buy that? And I remember seeing that shared around all the Bionicle groups because we're like, yeah, we got to vote in this. We got to tell them that we would
Yeah.
buy it. And it's cool to see that they know that that love for Bionicle is still there. Um, but with how this series ended and how the next series went, I think they're gonna have to be a little bit more careful with how they do it.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Yeah. And there is also part of me that's just wondering is like, is Bionicle done? Is this just kind of like we had a few good years of it? We have the story, it's still there if we want to go back and revisit it, as we've been doing here. And
Mm,
maybe it wasn't, we have this movie that maybe it wasn't as good as it could have been. But revisiting that, you're picking at the scab there. Maybe you just need to kind of let it sit there. Um
yeah, I think
rather
so.
than
When they brought back Bionicle, it was about 5 years after
yeah.
the original cancellation, and so part of me is like, oh, what if they do it? What if they bring it back after 15 years?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that's coming up soon. Or what about 20 years? And yeah, I realize I'm coping a lot, but I think there's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just such an interesting niche of a lot of ideas that came together to make Bionicle as cool as it is. That I think if they do it right, it could do very well. And I think there's definitely a high possibility that they do bring it back. But I think they kind of have it stashed in their back pocket right now as a,
Yeah.
if we can't get anything else to work, this will work well enough to keep us afloat for a while.
Yeah, that's a good sort of the MCU and X-Men idea. Like,
Yep.
oh, we have this in reserve as like our break in case of emergency. We just need a little bit of cash right now.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah,
Uh,
story here. Any other thoughts before we?
Not really. Not
Yeah, it's
much
just
for me to say on the story,
yeah,
honestly.
it's very generic adventure sci-fi. There's like elements of it starts out very like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, which I was like,
Hmm.
oh, that would be interesting. Like, what does Bionicle Mad Max look like? You could go so far with that, but then it kind of gets more like John Cartery, or I guess Princess of Mars,
Yeah.
rather than the movie. The book at that point would have been what was out. But yeah, just kind of what you would expect it to be and where you kind of expect it to go.
Yeah. I
And
do
maybe,
wonder
oh, go ahead.
with the desert setting. I'm trying to think because, like, when Bionicle 3 came out, that was like in the midst of like uh, a bunch of Spider-Man movies coming out and doing great. So
Yeah.
they went with a spider route. Um, Things like that. I don't know what was out at that time that made a desert planet seem so appealing.
Yeah, let me just look this up.
Trying to think.
I mean, yeah, this is like Transformers era around this
Mm,
time. Um, maybe if I look for 2008 instead of 2007. I think, I mean, Star Wars is just kind of an evergreen
sure. Yeah,
franchise.
that's true.
Oh, this is bringing up Twilight. I don't think that was appealing to the same demographic.
No, I agree. Also, don't remember any desert planets in Twilight, but it could have missed that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how John is gonna respond to this, but I'm gonna add Twilight to our list of franchises to cover.
Oh,
He
perfect.
may conveniently be sick for all of those weeks, but I'm gonna do it at one point.
Lovely.
Yeah, I'm not seeing like a clear analog here in the way that like Spider-Man was for the original run, or like the Web of
Yeah.
Shadows run.
Even the year prior, where it's like city kind of thing. It gave into that more superhero vibe,
Yeah.
um, which was really picking up. I don't know. It just feels like a lot of the other sections didn't, like, when they're flying wasn't like a big appeal to like something, but it was like similar to a lot of other toy releases then. The
Yeah.
choice of a desert planet here, it just feels, I don't know, it just a little weird. If they
And
released
that
it,
they've
oh,
oh
go ahead.
yeah. And that they've moved away from the superhero aspect, because this
Yeah,
is right when, I mean, this is the year after Iron Man and The Dark Knight.
true.
um what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say if they released it this year, I'd be like, oh yeah, they're just trying to cash in on Dune. I get that.
Yes.
Totally
Oh.
fair. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you.
That sound effect, I knew I would get some good use out of that sound effect.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I hadn't even considered that angle, and like, are they appealing to what was in the air at that point? And weirdly, I don't remember like I should remember. But for me, I was like in on Bionicle. So for me, like
Yeah,
what was in the air was Bionicle.
it was
Um,
Bionicle. Yeah, I agree.
so that isn't too helpful. But like, yeah, you think of the Barbie movies and they start out as like, oh, it's directly post Disney Renaissance. So they're all princess movies. And then they're like, oh, let's introduce some fairies and some mermaids. And they're like, oh, this isn't hitting quite as well. Let's do more modern day. And now she's an actress. And then she's a vlogger. Um, and
Mhm.
now she's like solving mysteries in the next TV show. Apparently, I don't know too much about that yet
Fair enough.
because the TV show hasn't come out yet. But
Yeah.
yeah, I you can track that with Bionicle, because it's like, oh, we start out with like the more Polynesian inspiration, and then we have with a lot of like Lord of the Rings in there, and then we have the more superhero stuff and the Web of Shadows with the spiders, and then we go to like desert island and underwater and in the sky,
Hmm.
and then it's like, oh, desert planet. I
Yeah.
wonder what the line of thinking was there. If it's just
Yeah.
we need a new setting, or
I
if there
get.
was like,
My only
yeah,
thought is they really just wanted to make it the opposite. They really wanted to be like, this place is very new, so we're not. It's not going to be islands. We're not going to see water. It's going to be desert. That'll be the opposite of what we've seen.
yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know what the design choice was for that.
Honestly, maybe it's just like gladiatorial arena. That's what we want.
Mm,
That has like a very like sword and sandals. I guess you do have like 300 and Troy and that sort of like brief resurgence of the sword and sandals stuff that didn't last very
yeah.
long. So
Yeah, that's true.
the
That could
Conan
very well
remake.
be it.
Yeah.
Definitely some interesting choices that they just the whole year is a lot of
Yeah.
choices that I'm like, I don't know if I would have made that, but I I it's not the worst decision you could have made. There are definitely worse decisions out there.
Yeah. And I do very much respect the like we're not going to repeat ourselves.
Yeah.
Whereas you get to like the reboot, like the actual 2015 reboot, and it's like, oh, we're kind of repeating ourselves here. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that didn't work out either.
Yeah.
I think no matter what, the 2015 reboot was gonna underperform, but that's a conversation for a different day. Onto the characters now. We have Mata Nui as a protagonist, which is wild. I love this
Yeah.
decision.
Me too.
Like,
In fact, so it's a really interesting story beat because in a lot of the promotional advertising for this year, like the look aheads and kind of that
yeah.
stuff, um it it was like a poster of like this desert planet with a giant robot limb, and the character that was standing there was actually not Matanui in like what we see now. It was actually the um Toa Inika form of Matoro.
Oh,
And there's a lot of speculation of, oh, maybe the whole idea was Matoro was going to be brought back on this desert planet, and he was going to have to figure out how to save and or become the new universe. And that's a really interesting concept too. But I think I'm more glad that they went with this route with Matanui because one, we finally get a characterization for Matanui, which
yeah.
is long overdue, and it's an interesting way to go. Two, I think bringing Matoro back, as much as me as a child would have loved that, overarching, it's it makes his sacrifice more worth it, more
Yeah, yeah.
substantial,
It
which I
means
think is good.
something.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, it was finally like I remember when that set was released for Matanui. I was like, that's a no-brainer. That's Matanui wearing the mask of life. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna buy that set. Obviously.
Yeah, I'm surprised I never picked it up. Because I guess I did have Toa Ignika, so I already had the Mask of Life. But
That's fair.
yeah, it's such a brilliant idea. And I can't honestly think of many other stories that do this of like we have this character who we have been referring to this entire time as like this god of the universe who has now like become the protagonist of the story. I mean, I guess there's biblical stuff and there's probably some mythological connections there, but yeah, it just makes for such a compelling idea.
Hmm.
I think the execution, specifically with his character, tends to be pretty good, but some of the writing around that kind of stuff is a little bit off. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like again, the concept just works so well.
Yeah. I do really love the idea of it. Like the concept of a banished god having to like be a human for a little bit
Yeah.
is it's very fun.
I guess I think Rick Riordan or Reardon, I don't remember
Yeah,
how
I
that
don't know
name
how
is
to
pronounced,
pronounce
but
his last name.
I think with his Percy Jackson series, he eventually had like I think it's Trials of Apollo, which
Mm.
follows Apollo as like he's been cast out and has to like go through these trials as like a human teenager to try and
Oh, interesting.
win his
Okay.
position back.
Huh.
That obviously has a very different tone because Apollo is a very different character
Yeah.
in that than Mata Nui is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a typical story structure that we're used to seeing, especially not in kids media.
Yeah.
Like we're used to seeing the little tiny adventurer is actually bigger than they realize, or has a bigger part of the story than they realize. The sort of Lord of the Rings or um, Bionicle Mask of Light story, or the like adventure we have to save the universe thing. Not the universe has been made incarnate and is now has to like go on an adventure.
Yeah. It is very like you don't see it very much. I think
Yeah,
from a storytelling standpoint, I think it's really awesome. From a me being a child at the time, I think I really liked that, coming of age kind of story
yeah,
with the Matoran that we saw in the past. And I think maybe that was one of the bigger tonal shifts that got me uh less interested in the story for this year, because like I liked the sets. The sets were
yeah,
great this year.
yeah,
But the story was kind of, we follow Matanui, who's the universe, who's
yeah.
essentially the god of this story. And his best friend is an old guy and a bug, and it's
Yeah,
like, okay, I don't really see myself in any of these characters except maybe
yeah,
Gresh, but that's it, or maybe Birix, but again, not for good reasons.
yeah. No, it's. I think part of it is his characterization here. Again, with the Trials of Apollo series, that's Apollo, who's more of like a fun like character,
Mhm.
whereas Madanui is very like stately and serious. I could imagine a like slightly more. I mean, it's hard to do because you've set him up as like the great being in charge of the entire universe. But I could imagine a version of that character that's like a little bit more playful or a
Yeah,
little bit more. Yeah, I don't know. It would have to be very intentionally written, but that would be kind of a fun reveal of like the universe has become the protagonist. And he's actually kind of fun.
yeah. Or even if that was his arc of like he's super serious at the beginning, but he
Yeah.
realizes over the course it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be that serious all the time. You can fight evil with fun, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
That
Yeah.
would have been a great arc.
Yeah.
Instead, we get like hints of that because his arc here is like the loneliness of godhood and
Sure.
making his first friends, which is actually something that I was thinking of as like imagining Mata Nui as like this giant robot and like he must just not have many friends. And so
Yeah.
getting that being like the main plot or arc for him was like, oh, that's kind of neat that it's like all about him making friends for the first time.
Yeah, it is interesting. The whole story of Bionicle takes place over the course of 100,000 years. Is kind of like
Yeah,
the vibe. Technically a little bit longer, but then you have to go into like really deep lore. And so for most of that time, Matanui has just been this kind of uh an artificial intelligence that operates this robot
yeah,
and isn't really concerned with much that's going on inside. He's just he's doing his job, which we'll get to what his job was, but like he's just roaming the universe doing his job. And now he's been put into the mask of life, and he's like, oh, maybe I should have been paying attention more towards the living beings inside of me.
yeah,
And so that does factor in here where he's especially meeting with like Click and with all of the Glatorian and Agori in this being like these are all kind of lesser beings, but I'm learning to appreciate them more and they're my friends. And we see that a lot more with Click and how much like he's like, yeah, Click's my little buddy, don't mess with him. Um is kind of a fun little way of showing that off.
yeah. I I almost this almost makes me wish that they had leaned even harder into this of like have him be such a distant character. You would then need a
Mhm.
different protagonist maybe for the audience to relate to, but have him be like such a distant character who like sees himself as above everyone else, as like, you are lesser beings than me, and then has to
Yeah.
learn, oh, actually no, they aren't that different from me, and I can be friends with them.
It would have been interesting if he was this arrogant like character that's kind of
Yeah,
been dethroned, and like it would give, if they had done it that way, it would have given, I think, Makuta a little bit more of an interesting side too, because now he's like, oh yeah, Makuta, this evil character, dethroned the god, but the god wasn't that great of a character anyways.
yeah,
So which one is really worse? Um, I think that would have been interesting, but
yeah,
I also think they felt like they had to make Matanui the like embodiment of goodness in this movie,
yeah,
which I think in some ways kind of fits the story, because in Bara Magna, the idea is everything has kind of gone to shambles for them, and morality is very gray for everyone across the board. So Matanui being there is like, hey, here is moral good. I'm lawful good, introduced to a world with no lawful good. Um, and that's how he pulls everybody together, and that's
yeah,
kind of the plot. But it does end up with his character being a little flat, admittedly.
yeah. It's the thing of like, the reason the villains are so much fun is because the good characters don't get to be.
Yeah,
Like, he's a very bland protagonist, but despite having like this very unique backstory for a
yeah.
protagonist. Um,
I I think if I was sitting in the writer's chair or in the writer's room, the one thing I would have pitched if they really wanted to run with this story is like, make him, if he's gonna be like moral and good and stuff, make him just so awkward. Like he's been alone for the past 100,000 years. He's been God for the past 100,000 years. He doesn't know how to eat. These guys actually eat
yeah.
food. Like what is he gonna do? He's like, wow, my stomach hurts. Am I poisoned again? Am I gonna pass out? And they're like, no, just eat. Like I would
That,
love to see that kind of stuff.
that's a great pitch. I love that pitch.
Uh,
Because yeah, that is, I mean, you have to, when you have a Paragon character, you have to give them something to make them more interesting. And that's a really smart one that ties into his like, because he's had people literally doing everything for him to keep him running,
mhm.
but people that he has never interacted with. So
Yeah,
having that be part of his characterization, that would have been really smart. And
yeah,
maybe that was brought up, and Lego was just kind of like, too complicated.
yeah, yeah. That's possible. The other thing too is I know, like from like a toy selling perspective, you want to be. I think they were starting to get a little bit more careful with how they're showcasing their characters. They kind of have
Yeah,
always been, but like they don't want their cool characters to be too goofy, or somebody might be like, "Oh, I don't like that. I want my character to be cool and
yeah.
mysterious." Um,
Now, one thing where they do kind of fudge that a little bit is in Madanui isn't really that good at fighting.
yeah, that is true.
Which, I mean, he beats Tuma, but I don't get the sense that that was a difficult thing for him to do based on how he's set up in the movie. Um,
Yeah,
it's such a good thing to be like, oh yeah, he has like abilities to transform weapons and transform things, but when he's just like like sword and shield combat, he's he's fine. He can hold his own kind of, but not really against
yeah,
anyone who's like actually good at that kind of stuff.
yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. I do, yeah, not your pitch is so good that I kind of wish they had just expanded that. And not only is he not good at fighting, he's like, yeah,
I like the idea of, I like the idea that you brought up of like the arrogant god too. Like it would have been so funny for him to like be like, "Oh yeah, I'm the greatest being surely I can hold my own in a fight, and then just getting like taken out in like 2 hits
Yeah.
would
Yeah,
have
because of
been.
course he won't be good at fighting because he's never had to.
Yeah. And they kind of, this is part of the story it feels a lot more tell don't show,
Yeah.
is like they're like, oh yeah, he's not good at fighting, so Akar, who's great at fighting, is going to train all of them, which we see Akar, like, he wins his first fight, um but he is taken out in a surprise attack,
Yeah.
so like his credibility is like, it's there, but it's a little wavering. And then we don't really see Matanui be bad in a fight per se, because every time a fight isn't going his way, he's like, "Oh, well, what if I pull out this new MacGuffin?" And it either scares enemies away or instantly lets him overpower them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an arc that kind of falls flat unless you're just kind of giving in to the exactly what they say rather than what you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. We can jump down to Akar, I think, because
Mm-hmm.
he's this like veteran warrior character, but he's mostly here to spout exposition and say important sounding things
Yeah.
rather than actually like as a character.
Yeah. Again, very, very show don't tell with Akar, I feel like, because he and Matanui kind of become besties in like the
Yeah.
first 5 minutes that they see each other, which is like, you save someone's life, it's kind of hard not to get close with them.
Yeah.
But it's also like he's another character that doesn't particularly have an arc in this story. Um, the novelizations are a little bit more in depth about how he is an older Glatorian. He's kind of faded glory and he's on his way out, and that kind of drives his motivations. But in this one, they mention it, but it's more of a, oh, well, I guess I have to go be retired now. Nobody likes me.
Yeah, he never feels like the grizzled veteran warrior. He just kind of feels like nothing.
Yeah. He's the plot device that's like, okay, I will I will be there alongside of you in the movie so that when you beat the really big villain at the end, we can use that as a plot point of, oh, you couldn't have beat him at the beginning because you needed to be trained by me.
Yeah. It's it's almost very video gamey of like the
Yeah.
character who is there in the tutorial and then kind of like pops up every now and again and you're like, "Oh yeah, that guy."
Yep.
And then is like at the end, "Oh, I helped train you." And you're like, "I've been playing this game for 200 hours and I've seen you 5 times since the
Yeah.
tutorial.
Yeah. And
Why are you?"
not to mention like his combat advice, like most of the time when they have like a training arc, there's always like, I'm thinking like cars, right?
Yeah.
The whole gimmick at the end is like turn left to go right or whatever. It's like that's the big important information that uh they convey, and that's how Lightning McQueen wins the race. In this one, it's expect the unexpected, and then that isn't really how they defeat Tuma or anybody else. It's just kind of
Yeah.
like hey, just always keep your guard up, I guess.
A
Solid
lot a lot of his
test.
advice is just like, if you want to fight good, then you have to fight good.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's my uncle was visiting once and he's a he plays a lot of video games, and so I was playing, I think, Bloodborne, and I asked him, "Hey, do you have any advice for this game?" And he says, "Try to get the enemy's health down to 0 before your health gets down to 0." It's
That's
like,
some
"Oh,
helpful advice
thank
right
you."
there.
Yeah. I hadn't considered that. Just like, yeah, there's something missing there of like, yeah, he just never feels like this grizzled veteran warrior that they tried to sell him as. He just kind of feels like, oh, he's there, he's along for the ride. he has no problem fighting. Like
Yeah.
there's never any reluctance on his part.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the like normal mentor arc if he's there and then he dies in the third act to motivate the heroes, or I guess the end of the second act to have like the darkest moment and then motivate the heroes.
That's true. Yeah, we see a lot of red guys doing that in this quadrilogy.
Yeah, it's not a word, it's something that they invented for the Alien collection release when there were 4 Alien movies and they called it the Alien quadrilogy.
That's fair.
I think it's technically a tetralogy would be the official,
That would make sense too.
but I prefer quadrilogy because it sounds stupider.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. And so we don't see like in the previous movies, right? The mentor figure is red guy who is small and old.
yeah,
In this one it is red guy who's big and old,
but not doesn't feel old.
but not that old. Yeah. He's
Yeah,
like he feels like he's just kind of going through a midlife crisis, if I'm honest.
yeah.
He's not the elder, he's not hunched over, he's not
He just
telling
needs to
stories about Nom. He's
buy
like
a motorcycle and get a tattoo and grow a
yeah,
soul patch, and then he'll like wear a leather jacket for a bit, and then he'll be back to normal.
exactly. Yeah, visually for Akar, a tricky thing is obviously they had to keep to his set, but
Yeah,
they also had to try and convey his oldness. And the way the set does this is simple. They switched out his hands for rather than being like red or orange to go with the rest of his look, they made his hands gray. And I think that was a story decision that they asked if they could have that to
yeah,
make him be like an older character, which is fair. But like visually, I saw the set for Akar and I was like, oh, it's another dude. It's a red dude.
yeah,
He's got a big sword. That's it. And I remember seeing Akar and being like, I don't want to buy that guy because I like the fire sword, but he has the same helmet as one of the Agori,
yeah,
barracks. Um, and in fact, several others in set releases. And I was like, this is just kind of boring. I don't know if it's not even a full helmet. It's like a half helmet that he's just been wearing. Uh, yeah,
yeah.
not the most compelling character. That's
No,
for sure.
no. We also have Kina, who
Hmm.
I think she's just saddled with the worst arc in the movie,
Fair.
where her whole thing is that we have this character Barracks, who's like the not very trustworthy character, and her whole arc is that she has to become friends with him and learn to trust him.
Yeah.
I just don't like, it's fine in concept, it's not revolutionary, but I just don't find their relationship at all compelling.
Hmm.
Like
It's
for this to work, you have to sell the like you have to get people shipping them as like enemies to lovers.
see,
And there's
I
just nothing.
I always thought of this as like this is a good sibling story for like
Oh yeah.
at first she hates him and then they kind of learn to like love each other despite knowing that they will always annoy each other. And I
Yeah.
think honestly of the in some ways I'm like wow, they act I kind of like their arc because there is an arc for them.
Yeah.
Birix is annoying and then he's kind of like okay, I'll explain myself. I'll be useful and I'll try not to be so annoying. Maybe we can share. And she's like, you're annoying, but maybe I'm a little bit too harsh and maybe we can share. And yeah, siblings, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that take on it. I wish that there was more there
Yeah.
there. And I think part of it is that Barracks as a character is not that interesting to me.
Yeah, he's. I will say of the characters, and maybe this is just how the the voice acting went. I think these two characters are probably some of my favorites in terms of like
Okay.
they're they're weirdos. They have character flaws. They're not trying to be perfect, and I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Hina's this weird like alien obsessed conspiracy theorist, and Beerus is a straight up kleptomaniac, and I love
Yeah.
that. I think in this movie, Kina's probably my favorite just because she is such a weirdo, but she's
Yeah.
always talked about and shown to be a good fighter and a competent Glatorian, but she's also a little bit crazy and chaotic. That she's constantly like taunting Gresh, being like, "Oh, you're not allowed to use your powers because you don't have enough rank." Meanwhile, I'm gonna go blast this rock in front of our pathway. Oopsies. She's
Yeah.
kind of fun. Unfortunately, I know a little bit of behind the scenes, and I found out Kina specifically her characterization is based off of Greg Farshti's ex-wife.
Oh boy.
He's told people that he made Kina based off of his at that point, I don't even know if it was his ex-wife when he was first making it, but they got a divorce around this time.
Oh
So it
boy.
was his ex-wife. He was like, "Yeah, I wanted to make, like a really spunky girl character, and we hadn't seen that much. And, it really reminded me of my ex-wife." And all the Bionicle fans were like, "Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right, buddy." So that's a
It
fun
is,
little tidbit.
yeah. It is. I don't know much about like Greg Farshti's personal life, and since Bionicle is like so centered on his creative vision, that I've always been a little bit curious as we've been going through these of like where's his personality coming through.
Mm,
And I haven't had enough time to like get a sense of that. I got a sense with like some of the Barbie writers since I think, oh, now I'm forgetting her name. Sorry, the writer of Fairytopia and a whole bunch of the Bionicle movies. She's like the most prolific writer of Bionicle movies. So I got a sense of like, oh, here are like the themes she likes revisiting and
hmm
the character archetypes and things that she is interested in as a writer that keep showing up. And there's even like Barbie Fairytopia is like a very shaggy version of an idea that then gets refined really well into Barbie Mariposa. Um,
mm,
and I think there are elements of that with like Greg Farshti going back to things of like self-sacrifice as like this very key thing. Um, it shows up a lot with we have Matoro and then we have Toa and then Madanui eventually. Spoiler alert.
hmm
Um, but yeah, I would be curious to like look at Bionicle through that lens of like the creator's vision there. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think to be fair, previously like the main story was conceptualized in 2001 by Christian Faber was
yeah.
the main guy behind it. And an interesting like little tidbit, this might be a little bit of a tangent, but Christian Faber was actually struggling with cancer at the time.
Oh.
And so the story of Bionicle, it was actually kind of reflecting his own story of having to deal with part of himself that is actively fighting himself.
Mm.
And so Makuta was the embodiment of his cancer. And the Toa being shaped into little pill-shaped canisters were his medications fighting them off.
Oh,
And it's
that's cool.
yeah, it's a really fun like little tie-in to a real human being struggling with something.
Yeah.
And so his whole conceptualization of these little robots that lived inside this giant robot was really his story. And although that story was passed off to other people, and I think he still had some oversight on um, what the story looked like, this 2009 story, I think, was really Greg Farshti's first time really stepping into the light of, okay, I have to tell everything from scratch at this point. Um,
Yeah.
and so we see some of that in how he does the new characterizations of characters, and like he really does have, Kina is based off of his real world influences now, and we have a few other characters like that, but uh, unfortunately, he got handed the full reins at a inopportune time. But
Yeah.
we do get to see some really cool elements brought up throughout.
Yeah, and speaking of which, with Kina, I think she's really underserved by the movie compared to hearing about her backstory in the books and how she is. We have like the one line she says about like, oh, people called me crazy for thinking that there were other planets that, but in the books that seems to be more of like a motivating thing for her.
Mm,
um for me, like, yeah, reading this, I didn't get much of that characterization or watching this movie until I was like researching more in depth on the characters. And honestly, I'm starting to notice a bit of a trend with these movies where especially the women heroes have
mm.
their depth cut out first. Because we
Yeah.
saw that with what was it, Holly, or yeah, Holly in the Mask of Light, where she has
Mm,
a whole off screen arc. We saw that a bit with Nokama, in especially in Web of Shadows. I think she was
yeah.
underserved in that one. Then here with Kina again.
The unfortunate thing is, because this is a toy series aimed mostly towards boys, the the female characters are never the main characters.
Yeah,
And in the stories, they're oftentimes the best supporting characters. But because these movies are, 70, 80 minutes long, they do have to cut a lot. And unfortunately, that often ends up being the storyline for all the girl characters.
yeah. Except for
So,
Rudaka.
except for Rudaka, shout outs. But yeah, that is a wonderful thing of having her as the main antagonist of that film, is we
Yeah,
got to see a lot of her characterization.
yeah.
Uh,
For me, I just kind of I wish there was one of these stories that was centered on one of these women characters rather than. And again, they are targeting a very specific demographic, and especially at this time, I guess I'm no longer a kid, so I don't have a sense for how this is now. But like,
mhm.
especially when Bionicle was big, it's like, oh, ew, girls, cooties.
Sure, yeah.
Don't, yeah. Whereas I don't know if that's changed now. And part of, I mean, especially when you're kids, like individuals have a lot of variation.
Sure,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was a trend that was a little bit unfortunate that I was noticing through these movies. That,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand it. I get it's a timing thing. It's just a little bit unfortunate that it's happened now in 3 out of these 4 movies, very noticeably.
It's also kind of an unfortunate year if you are a female Bionicle fan, because Kina is the only female character released this entire year,
Oh
which
wow,
isn't super like uncommon. We do see, like, especially with like the Visorak are genderless for all
yeah,
things
yeah,
considered. Most of like those enemies are not gendered, but even the small characters, the Beerix is the first small blue character that isn't a girl. We also see, I want to say his name is Terex, but he's the other blue character, the other blue Glatorian. He's a guy, and so this is the first time that we see Bionicle breaking that gender norm that it
yeah,
has. But unfortunately, we don't see it in the opposite direction of, oh, well, this, like, what if Akar was a girl? That could have
yeah,
been cool. Or I don't know, Gresh could have been a girl. Or there's a lot of other characters that didn't have to be boys, but they
yeah.
kept it probably largely just because their demographic. Would
Yeah,
have been
that does
nice.
make me curious about like what this would look like today if they reboot
Hmm.
this. Just if they were to reboot this, just like we're continuing this Bionicle storyline from where we left off, how would sort of the gender dynamics change? That could lead to some interesting things.
Yeah,
Um,
I do think it would probably like even just looking at the direct sequel to Bionicle being Hero Factory, they're they actually switched it up for the green character is more often than not the girl character, um, which is fun.
yeah,
I think in general it would be more fun if it wasn't the same color each time. But I think
yeah,
they did that in a particular way to be like, okay, this way the parents always know if they have a child that's a girl, they can get them the blue one, and it'll be always safe until it's not. But
yeah,
and I will say like they could have given the girl character one of the, like the lesser selling colors like brown or black. I am happy overall that Bionicle chose blue, which is probably the second most popular color.
yeah,
Red is definitely up there. Green and white are probably next, but I think blue is probably the second most popular character color, and they gave that to the girl characters. So I at least appreciate that.
yeah,
But yeah, poor Kina, kind of
yeah.
sidelined.
We also have Barracks, who I, part of this is just I don't like this character archetype that much.
I I feel you. I think I like him a little bit more as I've gotten older because I realize he is the annoying little brother archetype, and that is me, unfortunately. So like there's a lot of parts that I do relate to. Um, but yeah, he's not the easiest character to like. He is the kleptomaniac that is kind of a little bit too selfish all the time, and yeah, he's annoying.
I mean, and honestly, the again, this is like a me thing, not a. I'm not making a general statement about.
Oh yeah,
I think one type of character is better than another. That's just like, yeah, I'm the oldest sibling, so I don't have that like same connection with this character. I'm just like, yeah, I just find him annoying, and that was basically what I thought of him throughout the movie. I do like this dynamic that you brought up of Kina and Barracks as like the older and younger siblings.
yeah,
Yeah, for me that doesn't. This is just a type of character that never appeals to me. It's similar with like Peter Quill in Guardians of the Galaxy. I've never liked him. I never will like him because I just don't like that type of character.
yeah. That's fair. I think that's understandable. Yeah. I will say I do like there's like two frames of it, but they have a little like bromance between Bierix and Gresh after he
Oh, I
fixes
missed
him.
this.
Yeah, and it's just kind of a like Gresh is like, yeah, I'm all great after Bierix over here fixed me up, and Bierix is like,
Oh,
haha,
okay.
I do my
Yeah, yeah,
best. It's like oh, that's cute. I like
yeah.
that.
That would have been fun to flesh out a little bit more.
Yeah. I think it doesn't change much about Bierix except like he's competent, but it
Yeah,
does lead more into like Gresh's characterization with him being just like a genuinely good guy and
yeah.
very appreciative of people around him.
I could see.
Um,
Speaking of the Guardians of the Galaxy, I could see them giving him more of like a Rocket Raccoon type
yeah,
treatment.
yeah, I think that's a pretty good characterization. I've been using that word too much. That's a really good description of his character.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Again, there is. I can't suggest a solution that would work for me with his character because this is just a character archetype I don't tend to gravitate towards.
yeah, that's fair. Well, speaking of Gresh,
Yeah.
so Gresh is also a fun character for the out of story. Gresh is essentially Greg Farshti's OC. It's his
Oh.
self-insert character,
Oh, this is exciting. Okay.
which makes a lot of sense when you look at his name being Gresh, We get
Ah.
the Greg Farsh tea. He literally named this character after himself, which is why he's the cool character. He's the rookie, but he's good at what he does. And there's like a few scenes that hint at potentially a romance between him and Kina, and it's like, okay, all right, I see where you're going, Greg.
Love isn't canon unless it's my
Unless,
OC.
yeah, he's built different. Uh, but yeah, Gresh. Okay, being a person that always liked the green characters growing up, Gresh was great because he's still, as far as like pieces released in a set, he's one of my favorites. His weapons are super cool. He's got like a shield that can be separated into these like two bladed tonfa style weapons. He just looks cool. They do a great job of this is a year where they do a lot of color blending with their pieces. Um, and so they have like the dark and the light green on him that are
Yeah.
mixed all together. It looks great. Overall, great character design. I kind of wish they had gone with a different like base because they use black as a base for him, but good pieces overall. Great character design. Uh, as a character, he's just kind of the generic like I'm a good guy and I'm new at this. He's the rookie.
Yeah. He has that like green character energy
Yeah,
of like,
makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, I could see like he's a logical progression from Matau
Hmm.
of like here's the rookie character who's a little bit too confident in his own abilities, but he's very competent.
Yeah,
Um he doesn't get much to do besides just saying he can fight, and then sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. I assume they're setting up a bigger arc for him.
yeah. He was definitely like, as far as the books go, I remember him being more of like the protagonist
Okay.
because he was
Which,
that newer character. So he's a
yeah.
good, you know, a lens for the viewers. Um,
And if he's the author's OC, then
yeah, that too.
it is a
So,
long literary tradition. It's not just a thing that shows up in Bionicle. You know, it's like F. Scott Fitzgerald with The Great Gatsby and Nick Carraway. Oh, look at that! It's a self-insert
whoa.
character.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. Yeah, overall, like he doesn't have a lot of screen time.
yeah,
He's there for, to make sure that your Bionicle is in the movie,
yeah,
really, and to have another person on the team. But he's not crucial to the plot. He's not a major part of the story. He's just kind of there.
yeah,
I guess he's there to like to show the significance of the impact of the village being destroyed. That's kind of his
yeah.
reasoning. But
And I think he's kind of there to provide a contrast to the other characters.
mm,
Again, he's like
yeah,
the rookie character on a team of like the younger sibling, but not in the way that Barracks is the younger sibling. Like the one that everyone's
yeah,
kind of like babying a little bit.
yeah. That's fair. It definitely gives more talking points so that the characters can talk directly to the audience.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. He is what he is. He's not anything like nothing to really write home about, but
Yeah.
he's there. He's fun.
Now, next up we have the best character in the movie, Click.
Woo! Gotta love Click.
Yeah.
So
It's
Click actually did get a set release,
oh, that's
interestingly
cool.
enough. It's a very small set. It wasn't like a canistered set or anything. It was more of the hey, you're leaving Walmart and we have some candy here and also some Lego sets. Do you want to buy this Bonkel set? Um, and it's a very small set, but it was a nice little movie tie-in.
Yeah.
Um, I will admit I'm intrigued by their decision to make Matanui's shield a beetle's face.
Yeah.
Um, but I do like the inclusion of Click because it plays into Matanui's arc a little bit more of learning to respect and appreciate the little ones that help take care of him.
The little ones who exist on his body.
Yeah, exactly.
I I I have to assume that was at least somewhat a deliberate thing to have like him have a very close relationship with this character who is small enough to fit on his body.
Yeah. I think too, like it does play into his awkwardness a little bit.
Yeah.
They don't bring it up too much, but um everybody is like, "Oh yeah, that's weird that you have essentially a cockroach on you. Why do you do that?" And he's like, "No, he's my friend, don't worry." Um but that's kind of the only awkwardness we see from Matanui. I'm glad they included it.
Yeah.
Just wish they did more.
Yeah. Cuz this is a character archetype we see a lot of like the little animal sidekick that kind of humanizes the protagonist a little bit more. Um
Yeah,
the one that like springs to mind right away is Wally, since that is actually like a
sure.
cockroach.
Yeah.
Um, or you have like Nausicaa and her little fox thingy. Um, in Barbie, you have Alina and Bibble,
Mhm.
though Bibble serves a very different function. Because my
Yeah.
theory with Bibble is that Bibble is there to show the emotions that the Barbie character cannot. So
That makes sense.
fear, anger, that kind of stuff.
Smart.
Um, which, yeah, I kind of wish that they had considered that a little bit more here. Of
Mhm.
like, what if Click is a little bit more of an emotional character, has
Yeah.
more like reactions to things that are like indicating what Madanui might be feeling inside that he isn't expressing outside.
Yeah.
But I
That's
mean,
fair.
yeah, he is still an interesting little character who then has this like really great payoff at the end of he brings all of his friends and saves Madanui.
Mhm.
I
It's
Yeah.
interesting. I kind of it gives it a bit of a Deus Ex Machina kind of vibe
Yep.
where it's like, okay, they've been setting up this whole time that the mask, changes people into things and they do cool stuff. They could have, I feel like Click could have like instead of running away, could have, interacted with the mask and then like something happened and it turned Click into a giant monster, or that's how they all formed into the giant
Yeah.
beast thing. I think that would have
Or
been a little bit cleaner. I don't know.
even like the entire movie have Madanui be very protective of Click. Like not even like using him as his shield, his magic
Mhm.
beetle face shield. Just like have that be a constant thing of like he's constantly looking out for Click. And then you have that moment where
Mm,
it's reversed and now it's like, oh, Click is now looking out for him and maybe it's a moment of personal growth for Madanui of like, oh, I can trust other people to do things to help me. I don't have to be taking everything on myself.
yeah. Yeah.
Which yeah, could then tie into like the idea of him as being sort of a little bit arrogant, though not in like a I'm better than you all way, but in a I have to do everything myself
Yeah.
because none of you are. I am the protector here. None of you are up to my level, so I have to save you all. Then
Sure.
having someone else save him, that can be a big moment of revelation. Whereas here, it's like not not played for that, but not quite played for that either.
Yeah. It could even play into a role of trust where,
Yeah,
Mananui was betrayed in his own body, and that's how he was
yeah,
cast out. And maybe like he doesn't trust anybody, but Click is the one that breaks through on that or something.
yeah.
I don't know.
And it's also difficult because Click does not speak, so
True.
a lot of limits to characterization there. Speaking of limited characterizations, though, we have Tuma, the great Tuma. Apparently, he tells us that's who he is, but
Hmm.
I don't know that I believe him.
Yeah, he's kind of the big, ugly, like boss fight character,
Yeah,
but we find out he's just a puppet, and it's a bit of a letdown, both in the fact that like it's a letdown that he's not the villain because I don't mind a fake out, but it
yeah.
he's a cool character design. Um, but also like he just goes down so easily. There isn't like a big
Yeah,
revelation that Matanui is like, yes, because of all the training and because of my friends, I've learned this one thing that is unique to me that allows me to take out Tuma. It's like, oh yeah, Akar said to go for weaknesses, I guess. He kind of implied that at one point, maybe.
I
Uh
don't know that he did. I think we're supposed to think that he did, but
yeah,
I
very
don't
much so.
remember hearing it.
I know that Kina specifically is like, wait, he's not losing. He's just looking for weaknesses like Akar told us to do off screen. I'm like, okay, all right.
uh, you I to go back to this idea of like Matanui's arrogance, like if they had played into that, Tuma could be that sort of the mirror character.
Hmm.
We're not so different, you and I, but obviously don't use that actual line because that's a very cliche line. But have
Sure.
his arrogance be like, I have this entire army around me that at any point I could point at Matanui and be like, kill him, and they would overwhelm him. But no, I
Yeah.
have to beat him myself because I am the big strong guy. And then to have him go down so easily, that could be a part of Matanui's growth rather
Yeah.
than just like, oh, we need to include him because he's a set and also he's the leader of these people, but we don't really want to do too much with him because he's not the actual villain. So we're
Yeah.
gonna he's in two scenes. Like, and they don't even do a good job of like establishing him as a threatening presence.
Yeah. Like
But
we see him
yeah,
in is it Taejun, the water village that's
yeah,
destroyed. We just see him walking menacingly. And then we see him at the very end. And he like because he's big, that does
yeah,
kind of most of the heavy lifting. Where he's big, he's got lots of blades, he's got a spinny buzzsaw shield. That's about it.
yeah. I keep bringing up other media here, but what one thing that I think does this specific part of it as a like fake out villain twist, it has its issues, but Wonder Woman has Danny Houston as their fake out villain. And I
Mm,
think he only has two scenes as well, but or maybe three. But his first scene is like he poisons an entire conference room full of people.
mm,
So you immediately understand like, oh, this guy is a legitimate threat. Whereas Tuma,
sure.
he like walks into a ruined village and is like, I am here, and then leaves.
Yeah. Yeah.
There, there's nothing there to like make me worried when he shows up later and Madanui has to defeat him. Or even like to be like, oh, that's like he was built up so well and that he went down so easily. Like that really shows how powerful Matanui is. And it's just
Yeah.
like, oh, he doesn't seem like he was that much of a threat.
Yeah. Well, I think it doesn't help. The way they animated it wasn't
Yeah,
done in a way where Matanui does like this really cool specific finishing blow and takes him out.
yeah,
He shrugs his shoulder to attack, which is a good set tie-in. It's like, oh, why does he have these spikes on his shoulders? He's not going to
yeah,
use them, and he does. I appreciate that, but at the same time, he's literally shrugging to kill the enemy, which I think also weirdly enough, I think he does kill Tuma, which
yeah,
interesting take now. Um, I don't know. Maybe Matanui is allowed to, but it's part of the Toa code to not kill.
yeah.
And now he's been called Toa Matanui a few times now. But he's like, nah, it doesn't apply to me. I'm a cop. The rules don't apply to me. What are you talking about?
No, he's not a cop. He is the
He's
cop.
the cop. That's so true. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised that they just murdered him and didn't bring that up as like a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know. He's weird. He's the only member of his faction that really gets any characterization in this
Yeah.
movie. In the books and stuff, they're kind of like the Sparta of of the world, where they don't have a lot of resources themselves, but because of the system, they train really good fighters and they're able to win over resources. And that's a really cool and interesting way to do it. Um, but in this one, it's just kind of like, oh, they're attacking people, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, you mean the fighters that we're scared of are attacking now? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
obviously. I don't know.
yeah,
It's
the way
weird.
that the Skrull are characterized in general is just so odd. And I mean this leads into Metis as a character
Yeah,
who my take on him is that I think they hold off too long on the reveal that he's the villain.
I agree. I honestly
Cuz
very much agree.
yeah, I think they tease it like when um oh Kina and Barracks are kidnapped.
Hmm.
We hear his voice
Yeah.
and they're like, "What? It was you all along?" But we don't see him. I think if we had seen him in that scene,
Mm,
that would have improved this is maybe, I don't know what number fatal flaw we're on for this movie, but I think that's one of the fatal flaws here
yeah.
is that we don't know that he's the villain early on enough. So, like, obviously as a viewer, I'm like, okay, I get that he's the villain, pretty much from moment one. But there are moments like after they get kidnapped, where he's like pulling strings and like trying to get very specific outcomes. Because the Madanui is like, hey, we're all gonna go and save them, all of the Glatorian and me. And
Hmm.
then I think it's Metis is like, but what about us? We're defenseless here. And that's what gets Madanui to go by himself.
Right.
That's he's pulling the strings there, but we don't know that he's the one pulling the strings because the movie hasn't told us that that's what's going on yet. Um,
Yeah. It also like, at least for me watching, I think it's more fun when you have like little hints throughout
yeah,
it that like, oh, it clearly is this guy and they're setting it up for that. Whereas in this movie, it's like it could have been pretty much any of like it could have been Ranu, the fire village leader,
yeah,
doing it the whole time, and it would have had the same emotional impact for me. Like Metis from the beginning, I knew he was kind of sketchy.
yeah,
They introduced him as kind of this shrewd businessman, and now, oh, the shrewd businessman is also dealing with the enemy. Okay, that
yeah.
that's not really an interesting twist for me. If it was the village leader, okay, he's selling
Yeah.
out his whole village. That's interesting.
Or here's my idea: cut out Metis entirely. The person who finds Madanui is Akar. Brings him to
Mm,
the village. Is like, hey, here's our society here. We need to. And Madanui is like, we need to go on this big adventure. And he's like, oh yeah, we'll go on the big adventure. And then he beats Tuma, and who steps out of the shadows? It's Akar.
that would have been cool too.
Because then we have an actual like twist
Yeah.
of like, here's this character who has been throughout the movie set up to us as like he's the good guy, and now he's been training Madanui, so he knows all of Madanui's weaknesses that
Hmm.
he has been cultivating. So maybe Madanui needs to like think outside the box now to try and beat this person who literally trained him in everything he knows how to do.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, then you also get Akar is a more interesting character rather than just the
Yeah.
mentor.
If it was literally any of like even if it was Kina that was betraying
Yeah,
them, like it would have been more interesting. But Metis is like we have Beerix as the red herring, right?
yeah,
And then we have Metis as a sketchy character. And those are kind of our only two suspects throughout the film.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't really like. Obviously, it wasn't going to be Barracks, so
Yeah.
I don't know. If they wanted a really good twist, they could have gone for someone that makes more sense, or like that's has a bigger impact emotionally.
Yeah.
But instead, they kind of go with Metis, and his whole arc is very just the plot.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have any growth. Well, he does change, I guess, but unwillingly into a snake.
It's not a change so much as a revealing his true self, or at least
Yeah.
that's how it's framed within the.
Yeah, that's how they do a lot of the transformations is
Yeah.
kind of how they frame it. They frame the Glatorian getting their new weapons as this is like your true self peeking
Yeah.
through. And I guess you could even argue that with Click being, a shield, he's a defender, I guess,
Yeah.
by nature. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Metis, he gets a little bit more outside of this movie.
Yeah.
Um, after he's a snake and he's traveling around, and he actually interacts with one of those villagers from the Iron Tribe and meets the precursor to great beings, and then is killed. I think, I don't know. He dies unceremoniously. He's not an important character. He's just
Yeah.
he's there.
Yeah. I kind of feel like you either need to make a bigger deal of him being the villain or reveal it early on.
Yeah,
You can't do half of one and half of the other.
yeah. And this, by the way, this is actually not even the first Matoran-sized character that turns out to be evil in
Yeah.
in both the original series and then also in the flashback. The character of Akmau exists, who is the brown Matoran of the set releases that betrays everyone for different reasons. But he's like, it's a little bit more compelling because he's being manipulated by Makuta, and he's the first Matoran that we see that's evil. And this
Yeah.
one's like everybody's a little bit in the gray area here. Who's to say he's the only one betraying everyone? Like
Yeah.
everyone's a little sketchy. I don't know.
We maybe don't understand this world enough for his. Yeah. Yeah, there is nothing in the story that leads us to believe that we should trust Metis.
Yeah.
So when he is revealed as untrustworthy, it's like, oh yeah, that might as well happen rather than a big shocking reveal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there aren't a ton of other characters here. Mostly just side characters. There's the other Glatorian who have scenes where they have lines and say things.
Yeah. I appreciate they made I think our first character our first British character, I guess Sidorak had kind of a slight accent,
Yeah,
maybe. But we have, I think Terex is his name. He's got a British accent. I appreciate that. Vastus is in the movie.
yeah. He
Um,
has snakes.
yeah, snakes.
I like that character design. I wish I had gotten that set.
It's a cool set. I think
Yeah.
they kind of burnt their budget on that because they didn't give him a lot of armor otherwise. But he did get a cool like scythe thing. That
Yeah.
was his cool set piece. Uh, we got Strack early on. He's interesting. He kind of mirrors uh in the novelizations the kind of story arc of Malum, who's the first red guy for the Glatorian releases. I guess Ranu, also village leader. He exists.
Yeah.
He's kind of a little bit of the traditional like politician kind of feel of like
Yeah.
very easily swayed by money and very corrupt, but like doesn't is still kind of in charge.
Yeah.
but not so much in charge that, as soon as the tall people are like, let's not fight each other for sport. Let's actually work together. He's like, okay, I can't do anything. I'm just a little guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of these characters just kind of suffer from not having enough to do.
Yeah. And maybe, I mentioned this as kind of like as a plus early on, but maybe this is actually the downfall is with the first Bionicle movie, they had like a year or two of lore behind it that they could kind of incorporate and draw on. This is using a movie as kind of the introduction to the next section, locks a lot of things in place that otherwise could have been a little bit more nebulous or told in a
Yeah.
slower, longer way. Um, and unfortunately, it means they had to introduce a lot of new characters, which Bionicle does.
Yep.
But it introduces them in a very flat way instead of being like, okay, these characters from the comics and from this. In fact, instead, the comics are like, okay, stop reading comics, go watch the movie, and then come back when you're done reading the comics. There's no comic version of this,
Yeah.
um, which means the story is exactly as long as it is in this movie. And unfortunately, it lacks a little bit of depth because of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm just realizing we never gave our
Oh, we
story
didn't.
scores here. So we'll go through that and then our character scores as well. So I gave the story a 1.5 out of 5. I like that it's going in a new direction. I just think there's a lot of execution lacking there, and a lot of that is also again the dialogue. I'm We used to have a separate category for writing, but then it was hard to distinguish between the writing and the story sometimes. But this is one where yeah, the writing is dragging everything down with it.
Yeah, I personally gave this a one. I The story is there, and it's a very simple story, and I think in a lot of ways Bionicle needed a simple story.
Yeah,
But in other ways like it's a little bit more complex than it needed to be as well. With the first Bionicle story, it's okay, they're trying to find the wearer of this new mask of light, and they're adventuring and they find out it's one of them. That's cool. The second one is, hey, they're learning to be heroes and they find out the villain has been there the whole time. And the third one is uh, they got to rescue the Matoran and fight off the like beast urges that they've been poisoned with. Um, and in this one, it's like there's no clear end goal to it.
yeah.
Matanui has a goal. He's like, I got to figure out my way back. But this is kind of a whole side quest from that.
He has his like 5 year plan, but not his 5 month plan.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. The story for me, having come from a Bionicle fan who just saw the entire Bionicle universe get taken over by the most evil being, and all of our protagonists start to be enslaved or have to fight off this like the universe.
Yeah.
Going from okay, we're on a sand planet. Let's guess not die for a little bit,
Let's
and
drive in that direction.
yeah, and we'll fight off the guys that are killing other people, and then we'll figure things out.
Yeah.
And so this is like pace wise, it's weird, especially for them not to lean into aspects that we talked about with uh, the potentials for Matanui's character. Um, so it's it's one of those where like it almost feels more like a video game plot where
Yeah.
you're just doing things to get to the end rather than there being like a clear goal the whole time.
Yeah. You're
So
you're not generally playing a video. I guess some people play video games for stories, but the playing of the video game is supposed to be fun enough that the story is less important. But
yeah,
it doesn't work as well when you translate it to a movie. Cough. Super Mario Brothers movie. Cough.
What do you mean? The Super Mario Bros. Movie in 1993 was perfect.
Oh yeah, no, I need to see that one. It looks
You do.
weird.
It also, fun fact for any listeners out there, makes for a really good drinking game.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious. Well, different different subject.
Different subject.
When we do seeing Super Mario, that's probably the worst verb I could do for that. we'll 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 get to that. But yeah,
Workshop it,
John
yeah.
here gave the story a 3 out of 5. I think that's his like just slightly below average score.
Yeah.
Again, I hopefully I'll be able to edit in John's thoughts here. But yeah, I think he sees this as like for the potential it could have been as like the start of a new series.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Again, like, yeah, it definitely could have been a lot worse, but it's, for me, just a little bit mediocre, and it's not a story that inspires me or makes me think about it after I've watched the film. In fact,
Yeah.
I've had the movie playing on repeat on my second monitor to remind me of things that happened in this movie because I don't remember a lot of it. It's kind
Yeah.
of a very forgettable story.
So yeah, for
Uh,
characters now, I gave them a 2 out of 5. I think there's a lot of good ideas there. It's just again the execution is lacking a little bit.
yeah, I agree exactly with those points. I also gave it a 2.
Yeah, John once again gave the characters a 3. Hopefully I'll be able to. If not, I'll ask him next time we're recording something.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
just because, yeah, I think he's more positive on this than either of us are. So I don't want
yeah.
to be too down on this because it's like, oh yeah, there are people who enjoy this movie,
Oh, yeah,
and I
for
think there
sure.
are a lot of elements here that almost work in a way that, like, yeah, I could see on the right day it would work for me.
Yeah, it's the way I see it is it's definitely not like it is nowhere near a cinematic masterpiece, but it is a I didn't not enjoy it. It was a fun movie to watch. Will I watch
Yeah,
it frequently? No. But I enjoyed my experience watching it.
yeah. I
So,
I honestly didn't. Um,
oh, never mind.
but that's, I mean, again, I'm less into Bionicle as a series, and there are definitely like I will watch bad movies. Like if Mila Jovovich is in a bad sci-fi action movie, I will watch that and love it.
Mm,
So I get that like there's an entertainment value that is separate from the quality value. For me, I don't I don't have that with this Bionicle movie, but I definitely understand that as if you enjoy this kind of stuff, then yeah, there's enough here to like
yeah.
entertain.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Now for the visuals, I want you to talk about the visuals a little bit just because our scores are wildly different here.
That's fair. Yeah, so the visuals for me, I think this is the best visuals that we have of any Bionicle movie. And largely, admittedly, that is because the sets look exactly like the characters. And I think
Yeah.
that is something that Bionicle has lacked for the past few movies. And I remember as a kid being a little bit frustrated with that at times, trying to be like, okay, well, why does my character not look as cool? Or why does that character in the movie not look as cool as my set? Um, and I think in general, like this movie also has the plus of coming out 5 years after the last one.
Yeah.
Um, so just like from a animation perspective, they're using shaders now. Like they have textures on their armor. You can see the rust and like the
Yeah.
discoloration. They know how to use smoke now, and it's not just clumps of air. They've got a lot of uh, interesting. I guess the way they use the colors is both bright, but also, you can see them deteriorating. Um,
Yeah.
as opposed to like Matanui or even the Matoran at the beginning of the movie inside the Great Spirit Robot. Um, they've got, the shiny armor, this not weathered armor. Um, they also, this could go either way. They have mouths in this movie,
Yeah.
um, which is both like cool because it probably made the animators' jobs a little bit easier, but also they have teeth, and I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah.
Kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I
The faces are, because not only do they have mouths, they also have eyebrows.
They do have eyebrows,
And
which to be fair,
yeah.
the previous Bionicle movies also had eyebrows, but I think you don't notice it as much because
Yeah.
these sets or these characters are so set accurate that the eyebrows are a lot more noticeable. They're also more like brightly colored too, which is
And Madanui, every time his eyebrows like go up, it looks like the arms on, because the Mask of Life, if you haven't noticed this yet, is like the shape of like the eyes and nose and mouth is like a figure standing there, which
yeah,
means that when his eyebrows are moving, it looks like the arms are flexing on the, which was very distracting to me when I
that's
noticed
fair.
that.
Yeah, the shape is supposed to be like the Vitruvian Man,
Yeah.
like Da Vinci's dude. But yeah, I didn't think about the arms flexing, muscles bulging whenever he has a questioning look. It's so funny.
It's
Um,
I love the character models here, and like you were saying, like the textures on them are so good in the way they're worn down and how that tells a story about each character and their age and their, it's doing a better job communicating those things than the movie at times is doing. The movie is just like, this character is old, this character is young, whereas
yeah,
you see in the design of the characters the wear and tear of, and it tells such a story about Bara Magna as like this harsh wasteland that these characters have been like slowly decaying on as their like parts, their helmets erode. And yeah.
yeah. I I think they do a great job here. Even like from an animation perspective, I'm looking at a lot of the sets or
Yeah.
like the character models in this, and I'm like, wow, that's the shaders that they're using they're not just like regular shaders either. They're good. They've got for those that animate, they've got like decent bump maps and height maps on them to make it so that when you're looking at it, it's not just like a texture that is on top of it, but it actually has grooves and bumps and
Yeah.
scrapes, and it's great. I love the look of them, and I also like how they use some of like the pins and axles in this.
Yes.
How they're like always spinning as if like there's gears inside of it. I think that's fun, if not a little bit distracting at times.
Yeah. There's some of the like the stuff on the character's chest when that's spinning.
Hmm.
It gives them a lot of life. When it's the thing on their shoulder, I'm just like, it looks like something is drilling into their shoulder
Yeah,
endlessly. I can't imagine that is a pleasant feeling.
yeah. I think in some ways the spinning is oftentimes a little bit too fast and
Yeah.
a little bit too like they. If I was doing it, I would have rigged it so that like especially the arm pins, like you mentioned, those should, in my opinion, only spin when the arm is moving. So like
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
stationary, and then you make a small movement, and then it spins depending on which direction. I think that would have made more sense, but it would have complicated the rigs a lot more, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So I get it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I liked the character designs overall. I do like, although it's like a small frustration as little young Toa Legend watched as like the characters that I like didn't have their cool weapons at the beginning of the story, and I wish they kind of had the cool weapons the whole time. It made their cool weapons a little bit more cool, I
Yeah.
guess. Um, so Yeah, the characters are definitely where it shines, and even the the I was just watching through last night and thinking the way that they do the eyes is something that I really enjoy. In the previous movies, they don't do a bad job, but specifically the shape of the eyes, and then still having the pupil and iris just being a very
Yeah.
bright light. Um, the hands are also a major point where in previous movies they kind of had to just like guesstimate how a bionicle hand would look, and they were like, okay, well, it's got, it looks like a regular hand. It's got 5 fingers, 4 fingers and a thumb. It moves mostly normally. It's a robotic hand. And in this
Yeah.
one, they actually had they had a the bionicle fist to work off of. They do a good job of capturing that. I will admit, the bionicle fist in this year only has 3 fingers, probably because 4 they thought probably would look too awkward. They
Yeah.
end up with 4 in Hero Factory, and it's fine. But at least this year, they're like, yeah, we'll just go with 3 for now. But they also only have 2 joints in their fingers, um, which leads to some visuals of the hands, especially when they're like facing like palm out, just like flat. It really kind of makes the top of their fingers look like very sausagey, which is fun. I don't know. They tried their best.
Yeah. It's really interesting after these three movies that were less indebted to set accuracy to see such a close keeping to like even individual parts
Hmm.
that they're showing. And like as someone who played a lot with Bionicle growing up, that is the coolest thing ever of just like we are going to actually show. I mean it's like the Lego movie when
Yeah.
the pieces are actually moving like Lego pieces would move. It's like, oh, this is so cool. Um for me there's just a lot of quality issues in general. This is very colorful, but
Hmm.
in a way that like sometimes comes off as a little chintzy, like very bright saturated. I don't know, it feels very kid friendly in the colors that they are, as opposed to
Yeah.
the original three, especially like 2 and 3 being a little bit more muted and a little bit
Hmm.
more grounded. That's honestly like an aesthetic thing more than a quality thing.
No,
We should mention,
that's
is it
valid.
Tinseltown Tunes that does the animation here?
That's a great question. I looked at it last night. I think that is the studio that oversaw animation, but I
Okay.
think it's a specific other studio that did. I'm looking it up
But
right
yeah.
now.
Yeah. For me it's like I love a lot of these design things. The settings, some of them are good. The desert isn't a super visually interesting location. You can make it visually interesting, but it's very easy to look very bland because you don't have a lot of variety. It's basically just rocks and sand. Um,
Yeah.
I do like the way that the broken giant robot pieces are integrated into the different villages. But there's also just a lot of like long establishing shots, like shots that hold for a bit too long, where it's like, oh, they're trying to fill runtime here, I think, or
Yeah.
finish a line of dialogue without having to animate, which again, low budget. I don't know how this one's budget compared to the other three. I wouldn't be surprised though to find out that this had a lower budget even than those other three Bionicle movies. Um,
Uh yeah. I'm looking at their box office. Apparently they did have a box office earnings of just under $5,000.
okay, which
So I'm assuming that means they had like a few theatrical
yeah,
showings and that was it.
this is what happened with some of the Barbie movies where they would do like a very, very limited theatrical release, just so that
Yeah.
they could be like, it's a theatrical movie that you can get on DVD right now.
Yeah, as almost more of an advertisement for
Yeah,
that fact.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm not
But yeah,
finding
I
any budget
do.
for
I
this,
mean,
unfortunately.
yeah, I don't think we've ever had budgets for any of these toy franchise movies, but I wouldn't be entirely surprised just based on where Lego is with Bionicle right now. It's not their flagship franchise anymore.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, okay, we'll put a little bit of money into a movie, but not as much as we did last time. And I mean, it could be like 10% less than they did last time, but it would still have a pretty big impact on the overall. Yeah, I don't know. Where the last ones felt like they were kind of cutting edge for the time,
Mm,
this feels behind the time. I mean, this is a year after Wall-E,
sure.
um, which, I mean, that's Pixar,
Yeah.
but it looks phenomenal. Whereas you compare the original Bionicle movies to like Monsters Inc. or the original Toy Stories, it's like, okay, yeah, these feel a little bit closer in quality.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, I think you're spot on with like mentioning that the everything outside, I guess, of the characters
Yeah,
is a little bit not as great. And this movie does a lot of weird choices, both with implications to lore and not.
yeah,
Um, they do a lot of those establishing shots, but unfortunately, I think Bara Magna just in general is less of an interesting environment,
yeah,
which hurts it. But the other side of it too is just like they do some weird things. Just in general, they don't put a lot of detail into the surroundings. Where like on on the island of Matanui, we've seen some of those locations before. So seeing Ta Metru in a movie, that's so or Ta Koro in a movie, super cool.
yeah,
With Metro Nui, I feel like the whole city is super like flushed out and it looks super cool and unique. And here it's just kind of like miscellaneous village.
yeah,
Um, the villages don't particularly look all that different from each other, except slightly different hues. And environmentally, like we don't the sands of the desert don't even play too big of a role aside from
yeah,
the visual design of how things look weathered, but we don't really see sand blowing in the wind. We don't see the traditional like deserty vibes. It's just kind of like the world in this movie is not its own character in a way.
yeah.
Um,
It's
so yeah,
if they're going to focus on one thing and put the budget towards one thing, I think focusing on the character designs is the right way to go.
yeah,
But that does come at the expense of a lot of other things, unfortunately, including like the action scenes.
mm,
And this is where I brought up Barbie and the Three Musketeers, which came up because this came out on the same day, but they have a very similar issue, which is that the action scenes are just very slowly paced
yeah,
and awkward in how and how the movements happen. And I mean, it's tough to animate action,
yeah,
but it is also like if you're making an action movie, it's kind of important that you have interesting action scenes. Um,
yeah. Uh, I mean, in general, a lot of movies struggle with making
yeah,
sure that action scenes are also important to the plot. But I
yeah,
do feel like in this movie, the action was just kind of we need an action scene. We're going to have an action scene here. And I agree that Bionicle hasn't always had great action scenes in their
yeah,
movies. That's not its strong suit. In fact, in the first two movies, there's barely action scenes that
yep,
are like there. In the third one, we do see some good fight choreography, but it's they use it sparingly, and I think that's fine. This one, unfortunately, is about characters that are always fighting. The
Yeah.
Glatorian are experts of hand-to-hand combat, especially, or not hand-to-hand, but like melee combat in an arena. And they all kind of fight clunkily, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh,
The action scenes are not exciting.
yeah,
And yeah, again, it's difficult. And I assume they don't have a huge budget to work with. But yeah, it's a bit of a letdown. And again, Barbie and the Three Musketeers has the same thing where it's supposed to be an action movie, and yet the action scenes are just very difficult to watch because of how clunky they feel. And in that
yeah.
one, I think they're actually um, doing some type of rotoscope or something over actual footage,
Oh, interesting.
which ends up actually not working out very well for them because when you translate that to the animated space, it doesn't have the same, like they aren't able to give it the fluidity it needs. Um,
Yeah,
Here, I don't know what they're doing here, but it's not quite working. If they had
yeah,
gotten the chance to do more, because that's what we saw with the previous trilogy, where the first one had bad action, the second one they're like, okay, we can't do like swords clashing type of action, we're just going to have everyone shoot at each other,
yeah,
and that is so much easier to animate and easier to choreograph, and the movement can be a little bit, you don't have to be as precise with the movement for that to work.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
who knows if they had made another one, or honestly, if they had made this one be the big robots fighting. Because if big robots are a bit clunky, that actually works
yeah. That
because they're
makes
big
sense.
robots.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing too is I think this was before like motion capture technology was really big. So they were
Yeah,
all the fight scenes have been hand animated, um, rather than like nowadays. I feel like in some ways the easier thing to do would just be to put on mocap suits and
yeah,
have two choreographers fight it out. Um,
and yeah. This is the same year as Avatar,
mm,
so
that's weird. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
which yeah. Speaking of animation quality compared to other projects, though, Avatar is a bad comparison because that was like the most expensive film made at that time,
Sure.
which has been surpassed by Avatar 2.
Right. Exactly.
So now, not the first time we have compared animation in this series to, in this podcast, to the Avatar movies. I for
Yeah.
some reason like to coincidentally rewatch Avatar: The Way of Water right before we do any water themed movies. So that's always a little bit rough when going from Avatar: The Way of Water to like Barbie Mermaidia.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm
oh.
sure that's a bit of a letdown there.
But yeah, no, it's, yeah, when you put it in that context of like, yeah, this is the same year as Avatar. This is the same year as Up.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
these very well animated things, and again, much lower budget, so it's a different
Yeah.
scale. But yeah,
Yeah. You can definitely tell that the budget in this movie went to the character models
yeah,
and the everything else is kind of a afterthought. I will say
yeah,
this much. This is an actual gripe that I have with this movie, having watched it a few times now. Every time they show the night sky, Bara Magna should only have two moons, but I
yes,
keep counting so many moons. They don't. There's like at least five that I've seen. On top of the fact that when the Mask of Light or the Mask of Life is launched from Aqua Magna is supposed to be just a ball of water essentially. Like
yeah,
there's a core, but otherwise it the surface is entirely water. Um, but there's like whole continents
yeah,
in the film, and also the Mask of Light or the Mask of Life flies past like a whole galaxy at one
yeah.
point, and it's like no, this all takes place within the same, not even the same solar system, within the
No,
same
yeah,
planetary system. But
Oh,
I guess they had to do visually. I do, they show off at the beginning. Uh, I want to say they showed off where it's the Bionicle symbol with the three virtues and it lands on the
yes, yeah,
center planet, and that's cool because that is like a part of why everything is happening and why that symbol exists. But yeah, those beginning shots, like you said, kind of feel like they just needed to fill time, and the animators were not told what the planetary system looked like, and so they're like, okay, well, he's on an alien planet, so there must be like lots of moons or something
yeah.
there. I don't know.
Yeah, I gave the animation a 3 out of 5. Again, the character models. Actually, I'm gonna bump this up to a 3.5. The character models look so good.
Yeah,
It's just everything else that is like, it's not quite there for me.
yeah. That I gave it a 4.5. I think I really enjoyed this. Um, if they put some more work into the background, in reality, I think the background work is doable. It's just that the background, the setting that they had was kind of boring. If they had
Yeah.
had this kind of animation style, but for like Matanui or Metronui, it could have been really nifty there too. Um, maybe turn down the saturation a little bit, but otherwise, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So I gave it a 4.5. If there was more Bionicle media that came out after this is kind of the animation style that I would hope to see, just
Okay.
because it's so spot on to the sets. I think.
Yeah. And yeah, John gave this the visuals a 3.5. So yeah, on now to the performances. We have some big names here. We have Michael Dorn, aka Worf from Star Trek, as Mata Nui, which I was watching this. My mom was in the room when I started watching this, and she's like, "Oh, that's Worf." I was like, "No way! They did not get like a name actor from a big franchise for this." And I looked it up.
Yeah,
Oh, sure enough, she was right.
it's crazy.
Yeah, he's a good choice for this characterization of Mata Nui. I think my issues with him in this role are more with the character than with his performance, because he is performing this stately, serious character very, very well, and he has the perfect voice for it.
Oh yeah, it is.
Um,
It is smooth like butter, and even like his first interactions interacting with Click is like he's very much a strong presence, but he's
yeah,
also soft when he needs to be, and I like
yeah,
how I like Michael Dorn in this role. He
yeah.
does a good job.
Then we rarely have Jim Cummings
Yeah,
as Akar. What?
literally Winnie the Pooh is
he,
voicing my Bionicle character.
he's not bad. It's just like, why are you in this as like the third lead? I guess maybe second lead. Like,
Yeah,
why isn't he playing like Metis?
it's I don't know. It's weird. It is really weird. Like I didn't realize for a long time that that's who they got. Like I knew that the voice for Matanui was like a bigger name because I was like, yeah, that makes sense. He's the main character. He's got a really nice voice. And I didn't know for the longest time. And then someone was like, yeah, Akar is literally Winnie the Pooh. And I was like, wait a minute. I can hear that now, but that's why did he accept this role?
Yeah. Yeah, he's like a Disney like mainstay. He's in a whole bunch of their movies. I don't know what was going on. Maybe he liked Bionicle. Maybe he has like kids or grandkids that like Bionicle.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, good for him. Hopefully he got paid well, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that he doesn't bring anything to the role. It's that the role doesn't have anything for him to bring to it.
Yeah. It is really just kind of standard oldish guy voice. Like I don't feel
Yeah.
like when I see that I'm like, "Oh, that is the role for Jim Cummings."
Yeah.
He to be fair has a lot of range as a voice actor. He
Yeah. Yeah.
he does a lot of different things. But like, yeah, I definitely think of, his more popular roles as Winnie the Pooh and Tigger and I don't know, Ray, I guess is he's also credited for Princess and the Frog. I think he's the little
Yeah.
dragonfly. But like, I don't know. I do appreciate like I feel like I don't normally hear his like regular voice, and Akar is pretty close to his regular voice, and so that it's kind of cool to see that in media.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. He does a good job. I'm not gonna knock him
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that. I'm glad that they got him because he does. You know, we've talked
I'm yeah.
a little bit about how the voice direction is kind of iffy, but
Yeah.
the voice actors are definitely they're saying the words good.
Yes. Now you mentioned Kina and Barracks, played by Marla Sokoloff and James Arnold Taylor, as voices that stood out to you, I think, earlier.
Yeah, I think just in general, it part of it has to do with just how their
Yeah.
characters are. Um, but I think Marla Sokolov does a great job as Kina. Just like I don't know, she feels like a real character. She feels spunky but realistic. Like
Yeah.
where where Akar and Matanui are kind of paragons and like almost perfect versions of themselves. Um, Kina's kind of like knowingly unperfect, and I like how she does that. I think Beerix is just does that standard annoying voice. James Arnold Taylor does that really well here, and he, for me at least, like just really fit the role.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I think they both feel like exactly how I thought their character would sound versus like Michael Dorn and Jim Cummings. Like Michael Dorn is like okay, that's how Madanui sounds, I guess, but not exactly how I would think he would sound, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're
Yeah.
pretty
We
good.
we should though get into the there's something just off about some of these performances, and for me it sounds like a voice direction thing. Specifically with the scene that I noticed this most is a scene with Barracks and Kina when they're watching Madanui fight. Um and they're in this cage and they have this moment where they like laugh together for the first time. And Kina's laugh is like a jovial, like ha ha ha, and Barracks's laugh is more like a giggly, not like a, I don't know. There's something a little bit different,
Mm,
and it's like just off enough that it sounds like they're on completely different pages, even though
sure.
the scene is
Yeah.
supposed to be like them connecting. And it's like that throughout the film of like it feels like these actors weren't given the correct directions for the or consistent direction for the scene. So
Yeah.
they're all playing the scenes differently in a way that just like clashes so much and is very distracting to me.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. It really I know a lot of voice actors don't always voice their character in the same room as everybody else.
Yeah.
Um, but this really did feel like each of the characters went in for a day, didn't see any of the other voice actors, said their lines, and then left, and probably never got called back.
Yeah.
Like even in some ways, it feels like maybe a lot of their lines were um like they recorded a bunch of extra lines and they kind of had to fit certain lines into different spots to
Oh,
make things work.
that would also make sense with the amount of like cliche stock phrases that they're doing.
Yeah.
especially in like action scenes. That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's
If you
yeah.
notice as well, certain characters only recorded like 4 grunts.
Yeah.
Akar is a main one that you hear the same grunts over and over.
Yeah.
So that's rough.
It's and again, I think this is less a performance issue and more a direction issue. And I didn't look up the name of the director responsible for that just because I don't want to be mean to anyone. And there
Sure.
might have
Yeah,
been
yeah,
extenuating circumstances. Just, I mean, you have two big names here, so you don't have a lot of time with them.
yeah,
But there needs to be a bit more consistency of what are the performers supposed to be hitting, what is this scene supposed to be communicating, how are the performers adding to that, what is their place within the scene, and how can they sort of deliver this line in a way that doesn't make it sound like they're all recording in separate studios on separate days rather than all in the same room, which I mean it's standard practice. You record on your own and then it all gets edited together, but this just it doesn't cohere at all.
yeah,
And a lot of it is also just the editing of the lines. There's a lot of awkward pauses,
yeah.
especially in banter. And awkward pauses in banter just does not
Does
work.
not work. No,
And it might
I
also just be
agree.
writing because some of the lines are impossible to deliver well the way they are written.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely true. I don't know. They definitely jump between emotions a lot. Is
Yeah.
the main thing that I notice. Like the thing that I think about the most is the when they're writing to Tejun. I think it's Tejun, the Water Tribe,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Kina's like, "Woo, so excited!" And then she sees something in the distance, and she's like, "Oh no!" And of course, I don't see what's in the distance. I don't know what they're looking at,
Yeah.
but it's suddenly very saddening. And I get it. Changing from happy to sad is a quick transition, but the way they do it just doesn't feel natural, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I gave the performances a 3 out of 5. Again, that's not for what the actors are doing. That's more of a editing and writing and vocal direction thing where they aren't being put in the position to give the best performances for this movie.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also gave it a 3. I think, I love the voice actors that
Yeah.
they have. We didn't mention, but D. Bradley Baker is also in this. He
Yes.
does he does voices for everything. If you can think
Yeah.
of an animated like show or anything that's big, he's in it. Probably doing animal characters, but
Yep.
also he's every clone in Clone Wars. So he
He's
he
Perry
he's
the
put in his
platypus.
time. Yeah.
That's who I that's who I know him for being. But yeah.
So
Yeah, and we have
he's
Jeff Bennett
he's
who's
good.
come up a few times. Um
Mm.
yeah, people who are very talented. So I I don't think it is the issues here I don't think are a result of
Yeah.
any of these actors here. And yeah, John gave the performances a 3.5 out of 5. So that's more of his average score for
Yeah.
things. So yeah, last up we have the sound. This is the final of my I haven't been counting, but my 5 fatal flaws. And I think this is the biggest of them.
Yeah, I think I'll agree. In
The
previous
score?
movies, we've had Nathan First doing just a really good
Yeah.
job. His initial one is a little bit more cartoony, and they kind of got a little bit more serious and more, I guess, grounded in a way as they went on.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this movie goes back to the cartooniness, but it kind of turns that up to 11, and in my opinion, not necessarily in a good way.
Yeah. To me it was just so generic kids cartoon
Mm,
music in a way. I don't want to be too harsh on the composer. I wouldn't be surprised, especially with this one, if They just sent him a list of like, here are the types of songs we need. Can you make these types of songs? So he made those types of songs, maybe didn't have a ton of time, sent them over, and then they just kind of slotted them in to the
Hmm.
scenes. Because it just feels very mechanical. It feels like they took a stock library of sound, of like music, and just like put in, okay, well, this one kind of fits this scene, so we'll put this one here. This is the slightly more exciting one that fits here. And yeah, just I have a theory that music has a bigger impact on how people respond to movies than they realize.
Yeah.
Um, and so when the music just isn't selling the emotions hard enough, it
Mm,
there's no way to connect to the movie.
yeah.
And it's something that you don't necessarily notice in real time unless you're thinking about it. But it's like, yeah, these exciting moments would be so much more exciting if the music was telling me that this is an exciting moment that I should be paying attention to, instead of just being like generic exciting moment music.
Hmm.
Um, the tense moments are just like, they aren't tense because it's just like generic tense moment music. It's not selling me on these emotions, so it's harder to engage with the story, and that has effects on everything else. You notice the writing more because the music isn't selling those moments to you. You notice the characterizations a bit more. It's harder to get invested in the whole story if the music isn't selling you on that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think, when there's good music, those pauses, those awkward pauses in dialogue, you don't notice as much
Yeah.
because you kind of understand what the characters are going through and why there might be pauses. Maybe they're thinking, maybe they're uh, trying to express something, but they can't. Um, Whereas in this, it feels like there's no subtext to anything.
Yeah.
And the music doesn't really help with that because it is kind of either I feel like it has two modes. It's either we're in action, we have general action music, or goofy. And that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And they mix those two at times, but there's not a deeper emotional impact that I feel like the score should have.
Yeah. It's a letdown. And again, five fatal flaws. I guess maybe it isn't five. We'll see how many it is when I count them off, and I might forget some. But I think the writing is the first one.
Mhm.
The characterizations of like the side characters, that's the second one. Um, I'm forgetting. Maybe the twist was the third one. Oh no, the third one is the voice direction and editing, and then the
Sure.
fourth one is this music. I think any two of those, if you fix any two of those, I guess the fifth one is the action. You fix any
Sure.
two of those, this immediately everything else is less prevalent if you fix any two of those.
Yeah,
But
that's fair.
because all five of those things are missing, we might look back at the other Bionicle movies, and yeah, the first one doesn't have great action. There's some bad dialogue in a lot of these. There's some bad side character development in a lot of these, but because they have enough of those elements, it stands out a bit less.
Mm,
So yeah, it's unfortunate that they weren't able to kind of pull it off as well as maybe they were hoping to.
yeah. And it's not necessarily their fault. There's a lot of
Yeah.
external factors that played into this. Um, I wonder
And
if they probably did spend a lot of their budget on some of the voice actors that they got, and
yeah.
unfortunately couldn't use that in other ways, maybe to pay the composer better, or um, I don't know what the time constraints look like. Part of me thinks that they had more time constraints because the sets are as accurate as they are,
Yeah.
but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, and I mean, making movies is difficult in the first place.
Sure.
So any of those pressures just can add up. And yeah, when a movie turns out well, it's kind of a miracle that everything came together in that way that made it work. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it is just kind of unfortunate to see this. This is like ratings wise one of the lowest ones that I've watched for this podcast, just because
Mm,
like all of these individual elements aren't quite there,
yeah.
um, which is unfortunate. Yeah, I gave the sound a 1.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I think I gave it a 2. It's I want to say it's my lowest rated one. Yeah, it's definitely my lowest rated one of the
Yeah,
Bionicle series. Um, for sound, I think just the reality is the initial 3 movies have such a great soundtrack. They have a
yeah,
nice use of leitmotifs to uh, give the characters a specific song that correlates to them, a specific soundtrack for them. Whereas this one, there is an ongoing soundtrack throughout, but it doesn't play to the character's strengths that they did previously. So I
yeah,
gave it a 2. It's not the worst soundtrack in the world. It's not great. It's just kind of there.
yeah. And John gave it a 3. So that leaves my final scores at an 11.5 out of 25, which is a 46% or a 2.3 on our 5-star rating. So yeah, pretty low, unfortunately.
Yeah, I gave it a 12.5, which is exactly 50% or a 2.5 star. Um, I think this is like towards the bottom end of watchability for me, where it's a it's a watchable movie. I think from
Yeah,
just the animation perspective, I will probably watch it a few more times as I'm learning more about animation. But the story is not the reason why I'll be watching it, and the sound isn't the reason why I'll be watching it. In fact, in some ways, having it on repeat muted has been a little bit more of a enjoyable experience. Um, but
it's one of those when you have it on mute and black and white, it suddenly is a better movie.
right, exactly. Oh, maybe I should set it to black and white next. There we go. But yeah, uh,
Yeah,
John in this case gave it a 16, which is a 64% or a 3.2. I believe that is his lowest rated one. It's the lowest rated one, I think, for all 3 of us.
okay, yeah.
Um, I'll have to check on John to see if I don't know if he liked this one less or Web of Shadows less. He did not like Web of Shadows.
Yeah.
No, he still liked Web of Shadows more than this one. That's fair.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Again, it's a very watchable movie, and I remember enjoying it as a kid, but it's it doesn't do the same thing that the previous movies do in respecting that the viewer may not understand immediately what's going on, but they're able to learn and they're able to look into things. This one was very much this is what's happening. This is what's in your face. This is the story. Don't look into anything else
Yeah.
because the things that they have fleshed out are the things that they're showing versus the depth of the previous movies. Uh, I think carried them a long way.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the last Bionicle movie in this main Bionicle series for us. So, well, just to wrap things up, after this movie, we do get some more story material. And in that, Madanui journeys to the center of this maze that they teased at the end of this movie, and finds a power source for the giant robot. And Matanui realizes that his destiny is to merge the planet of Bara Magna with its 2 moons, Aqua Magna and Bota Magna, and reform this planet called Spherus Magna, because 100,000 years ago, the planet had split as a result of this massive Dune style war over Protodermis. Um, and yeah, that was
Specifically,
actually,
energized protodermis. Yeah.
yeah, and that was actually Matanui's purpose. He was created to go out and find a way to reunite these planets, and so now he has found that way. So he is now going to reunite the planets. And meanwhile, after spending some time acclimatizing to his new giant form, Makuta blasts off from Aqua Magna, and his first plan is to kill Matanui and conquer the entire universe after that.
Mhm.
But inside of the giant body, his Rakshi are killing and enslaving many of the Matoran, and the remaining members of the Toa, Order of Matanui, and Dark Hunters all team up and try to stop Makuta from within. Different people have different motivations. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background there. But Makuta lands on Bara Magna, and he and Matanui begin fighting. Matanui and the giant broken robot that has been reunited. And Matanui is ultimately victorious, and he uses the last of his powers to reunite Spherus Magna and transform the wastelands into a rainforest. And he bids farewell to the Toa and Glatorian, tasking them to seek out the great beings who once ruled Spherus Magna and are the ones behind this whole thing of creating the robot and all of that stuff. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, the Toa, Matoran, Agori, and Glatorian begin to build a new society on this new world.
Yeah.
And
The
there's,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the final set release for Bionicle was a letdown for a lot of fans, but I think it was really a love letter from the creators to the fans, knowing
Yeah,
that Bionicle probably would have been canceled in 2009 if the, upper management had their way. But I think the creators were like, okay, we've made this whole story. Please give us just like 6 more small set releases. And so they allow that, and we get the Bionicle stars as the final set release, and they're all Matoran size. They're a gory Matoran size. They represent different major factions within Bionicle. So we have, as far as villains, we have a Rakshi set, we have a Skakti set like the Paraka, and we have a Scrawl set to represent the new major villains. And then on
yeah,
the hero side, we have Tahu, we have Takanuva, and we have Gresh. Which again, Gresh was kind of just a tie-in because they needed
yeah,
to also have the new stuff there. And he was kind of the protagonist in everything else within the Glatorian universe. Um, but it's small sets. The whole gimmick was if you collect them all, you get the golden armor, which is what Tahu needs to help fight off all the enemies on the ground, so that Matanui can stand a chance against Makuta. And it's a nice little cute set tie-in
yeah,
for everything else. And it does, despite the unfortunate side of the fact that Bionicle had this uh, pretty abrupt ending, they do end it well with
yeah,
Makuta being defeated, all of the Matoran and Toa inside the universe getting to explore Spherus Magna, all the inhabitants of Bara Magna finally having resources and interacting with these weird artificial beings from inside a robot. Um, and it sets it up for a nice open-ended conclusion. And there
which,
there are a few like sections after that, but
yeah,
at that point, Greg Farshtey was just kind of writing it out of passion. He wasn't getting paid for it, and at a certain point, he was like, "I have other things that I'm working on now." He was moved to the Ninjago team,
okay,
and so he actually does. He did all the writing for that. He might still be doing the writing. I want to say he retired a few years ago, but he did a
okay,
lot of the writing for Ninjago. So two you know two long running mainstays of Lego are under
yeah.
his belt.
I do think it is interesting that, yeah, we have this very, very good ending, but then that it did, Greg Farsty did set up, like, he was trying to bring all of the loose threads to a close. And so he had like a new big story arc he started setting up and then kind of said, okay, I think I'm done with this. And it makes a lot of sense to me just looking at throughout this podcast, we look at a lot of people who, I mean, when you think of like the Christopher Nolans or Greta Gerwigs, these people who are passionate artists who get these big opportunities, these big breaks, and are able to express all of their ideas and get a lot of fame from it. That's not what it is for a lot of artists. A lot of artists are, they're working for Lego doing story for random little franchises. And then suddenly one of these gets big and a lot of people are invested in it. So I understand where he's like, yeah, I feel enough passion with this to keep it going, keep doing more, as like an artistic release of like people are paying attention to this and enjoying it. But then also like eventually that does fade a little bit. And so he moves on to new things. I think that's, yeah, there's something bittersweet to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And being a kid at the time when this franchise ended was like
Yeah.
it was so heartbreaking to me because I was like this is the thing that I've been so invested in. But I think as I've grown up and as I've become an adult, looking back on it, I'm glad it had a final ending. And
Yeah.
the reality is the ending that we got was actually pretty good. I like that, 2008 ended with evil taking over. And then the next few years we or the next year we get to explore what Matanui is like. And it is really a side quest, but it is a nice little side quest to explore what the bigger universe outside is like while still having that suspense inside. Um and they don't leave us outside of that universe for very long. They bring both
Yeah.
of the universes together. Um and it ends on just a nice little ending of uh Matanui is still stuck within the mask. Both of the giant robots have collapsed and are broken on the ground. In fact, one of them is crushed underneath one of the moons, but that's neither here nor there. Um, and he's stuck within the mask, and in his final words, as Tahu's holding him, he's like, "Hey, I'm going back to sleep, but keep living. Look out for each other. Seek out the great beings if you need help." And it gives Tahu a little bit of a leader figure role. He's not
Yeah.
he's not a Turaga. He doesn't transform. In fact, I don't think any of the Toa Mata can because of how they were made. But he is this new leader who is more mature now and more able to cope with his responsibilities. And so, as much as I hated what like watching it end, I'm glad that it did have an ending that was solid enough.
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
think
On
if
that note, I think that's kind of the
yeah,
best note to wrap this up on. Thank you everyone for listening. Make sure to follow us on social media. We are Binging Barbie Podcast on Instagram and Tumblr, Binging Barbie on Twitter and Serialized, and Binging Barbie Movie Podcast on Letterboxd. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a 5-star review and join our Patreon. Now, Toa, where can people find you?
best place to find me is probably on youtube.com/Toa Legend or on twitch.tv/Toa Legend. I stream on Twitch every Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern. And then I upload on YouTube sometimes. I'm working on a very big project, so it's taking a while, but hoping to get back into a more scheduled upload period shortly.
Yeah, and I'll leave those links in the description for anyone who wants to check those out. And yeah, we will be taking a break from this current series next week to return to our first ever series. There is a new Barbie movie, Barbie and Stacy to the Rescue. This came out a few months ago. We recorded our episode. I completely forgot to add it to the release schedule, so didn't want to interrupt the Bionicle series in the middle of this original run. But now that we've finished that, I'm putting it in there before we start our next little mini series, kind of on the Lego Hero Factory TV show. We'll be going through that over 2 episodes, and then we'll actually be finishing out Bionicle by doing the reboot series. So you can look forward to those in the upcoming weeks. And yeah, in the meantime, be nice to beetles.
That's what I learned in this movie.
Bye, Barbie.
Bye, Barbie. Bye, Bara Magna.
Bye,
Whoa.
yeah. Bye, Bara Magna.